Hello and welcome to DudaCon 2023. I'm Nick Ranger and I'm so excited to be hosting the very first of Duda's 3-day virtual sessions where agencies gather to learn about how to build their strategy for growth in the age of AI. This year, DudaCon is sponsored by none other than two absolute pillars of the SEO global community, SimilarWeb, who are allowing marketers to analyze a competitive landscape and search engine journal, the SEO authority. Duda has some incredible content, so if you haven't already subscribed to Duda for cutting-edge conversations, webinars, and insights with the SEO community's best and brightest, hit that like button. And if you're loving DudaCon, also go for that subscription for the notification bell. That would be really great, so you get to see any new video releases as they come out. To kick off our very first online conference session topic is SEO dead, what AI means for clients for their SEO strategy. We have three incredible guests who I will probably introduce momentarily because it's DudaCon, I just want to touch base on the next two sessions over the next 2 days for this 3-day event. So tomorrow, we'll be deep diving into your 3-year business plan, winning agency strategies in the age of AI. And this is where we'll be leading agencies will be able to share how they're responding to the challenge and opportunities of AI. And for the final day, the closing keynote will feature an exclusive with Duda's founders on building a future-ready web platform for agencies, where they'll be able to share some incredible insights on how Duda has incorporated AI into the platform, and of course, what's next. So without further ado, I'd love to be able to introduce these phenomenal guests. I think, our first guest of our three that will kick off DudaCon. I mean, this guy, he needs no introduction, really. I'd love to introduce Barry Schwartz. For anyone out there who has been living under a rock, Barry, you're a living legend within the SEO community. He's the CEO of Rustivic, a New York web service specializing in customized online technology that helps people be able to cut costs, increase sales. He's also the founder of Search Engine Roundtable and has covered search for the last 19 years. Thank you so much for being here, Barry.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's a great session. I'm looking forward to the Q&A section.
Me too. And of course, next up we have Gerald Murphy. Gerald, you actually fell into the world of SEO after studying information retrieval, which I love. You were studying information and wasn't necessarily aware that the SEO industry existed, but now that you're in it, you love it, and I love that for you. He's a prolific documenter of SEO publications in Search Engine Journal, and he's been, over the last 7 years, worked with software, and of course, here today at SimilarWeb. Hey, Gerald.
Hey, Nick. I'm good to be speaking with Barry and Bart.
Awesome. And of course, speaking of Bart, Bartosz Gawrylowicz, he is the founder and head of SEO at Onely, and of course, the co-founder of ziptie.dev. Great little indexing tool there. He's been a staple of the SEO industry for the last decade. He has been found all kinds of really awesome, wonderful tools, which I love to use, and is also the co-founder of Elevate, 2018's best small SEO agency in Europe. And of course, he's a prolific thought leader, especially when it comes to all things JavaScript SEO. And he's the one that's going to be taking us through a wonderful deck today. Say hello, Bart.
Thank you so much, Nick. That's a beautiful introduction, and I'm honored to be with such a wonderful crowd here today.
Awesome stuff.
Can't wait to geek out into some technicalities, but I'll try to keep it digestible.
100%. And of course, my name's Nick Ranger. I'm a senior technical SEO at Design Marketing, and I'm really excited to be here with this wonderful, illustrious group of people. I think without further ado, I think let's just get right into the deck and start sharing insights. Of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them into the chat. We love an active chat. We can see heaps of people from all around the world tuning in, which is wonderful to see. So look, we've got a wonderful guest panel here today. So pop in your questions and we will absolutely get into them after this. Bart, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, just let me get back in focus. Okay. Oh, that shouldn't happen. So we have first technical issues behind us. So let me start with basically a little bit of intro. Today we're gonna go through the new era of AI. Just after I get back in focus again. And we'll go through some of the latest changes at Google with SGE layer and all of that. I'll try to keep it very digestible. I'm not gonna geek out as much as usual. So let's dive right into it. My name is Bartosz Góralewicz. I've been introduced beautifully already, so I can skip this slide. I run Onely. Onely is a technical SEO agency with a huge R&D team, and that's something we take a huge pride in. And we've got this research on SGE. But before I go through what SGE is, I figured the best and simplest way is to basically show it live. It's not gonna be fully live, just in case, but I've got a pre-recorded. Oh wow, sorry, my PowerPoint is really eager to get started today. So let's have a look at how SGE, so Search Generative Experience, looks like. Basically what that means is that Google changes the layout of Google SERPs, search engine result pages, to kind of enrich them with AI. And let's see how it looks like in the wild. Hopefully this demo is gonna be working. So if you have SGE enabled, you have to apply for that from a private Gmail account. You can search for anything you like and you will get these results. So here I'm searching for best noise cancelling headphones. And as you can see, this is a different experience. That's something that we're used to with regular SERPs. Not only we have a huge list of headphones, but we can also peek into sources and stores offering these. So that's just one of the examples in the e-commerce space. And I want to show you something that's very close to my heart here in Texas. Hopefully, again, oh, wow. We did run a lot of tests of these videos, but as it always is. So not headphones. Here we go. So as a brand new Texan, I'm learning how to smoke. So if we want to search for how to smoke a brisket on a Kamado grill, we can see how this experience looks like. And it's a very, very immersive experience nowadays with this new layer. So not only you can see a lot of info, recipes kind of ready to go, you can see YouTube videos, but then you can ask follow-up questions with whatever you like. So for example, what temperature do you have to use? How do you start a grill if you're really beginning? And how do you do all these things? So if you look into this, even if you don't like some of the results, you can always go back. It's a very conversational approach. And you can use any of the other suggestions from Google. So with that, you can see that this is a huge shift. It's a huge change. Hence, a lot of people, again, as every 2 years in the SEO industry, say that this SEO is dying. I don't think that's the case, but let's look a little bit under the hood of that SG layer. So what that actually means for your company, whether you're an agency, maybe you're in-house, let's look into some of the data. So what we've done is we've been researching both machine learning and AI since 2014, when Google announced, and I remember that in, I think, 2015 or 16, that by 2024, Google's main product will be AI. So when I heard that, I was like very skeptical. I didn't really believe that, but we started really researching all things related to both machine learning and AI at both Google and Bing. So what we've done a few months ago when SG was released is we've built a scraper and a team that basically analyzes all the SG results on a weekly basis. So now I think this is the most important thing. Right now, looking at the data, looking obviously at popular queries, we have, sorry, there's a lot of technical difficulties today, even though we had all the checks. So SG is generated for 75% of queries, which is astonishing for me because this is the fresh product. This is an experiment. And for it to be so deeply engraved in Google was kind of shocking to me to see. especially that if we look at the spread, 55% of our queries had auto-generated responses, so you didn't have to click converse. And for 20%, you actually had to force Google to show you SG response. And why is it important? Like, some verticals are more affected than others. In e-commerce space, it's 96% of e-commerce related queries that have SG results. We'll go through some of the examples today, but that basically shows if you're in the e-commerce space or you work with someone who's in the e-commerce space, that might be really something you have to look into very quickly. And some verticals are safer than others. And that's actually, I know for some of you, finance doesn't come as a shock, but you will see why I think it's quite interesting. So out of these, there is one vertical that Google seems to be a little bit afraid of, I'm assuming for legal reasons. So finances and investments only have 22% of SG results, which is quite interesting. And finance is just one of a few exceptions. So there are not too many exceptions to that rule. We'll go through that in a second. And that's something where I think we're going to have an exciting conversation with Barry after this part, because Google seems to have no boundaries whatsoever. They go after your money, your life. So if you Google cancer-related query or suicide-related queries, Google will show SG-enabled results, which is quite a shock because, first of all, we as SEOs are kind of being judged differently by Google because we need to meet a lot of criteria to actually publish anything about these. And the second thing is health. So as I mentioned, both your money, your life and health seem to be really heavily targeted by SGE and basically breaking their own rules of authority and stuff like that. So let's go into some of the verticals. I feel like this is the most exciting part for me, at least. So investing, as we already established, it's not really something that Google is really pushing heavily into. However, medical is 81%, so 81% of medical queries have SGE results enabled. SEO-related queries, I'm assuming you might be interested in that for your agency's sake, they have 88% SG coverage. E-commerce, as I already mentioned, 95%. And time-sensitive queries like when or news-related queries have fairly deep penetration of these results as well. In-person visits are 98. And lastly, simple, no simple, how we pronounce it is also 54. What's actually quite interesting to me, what it shows that Google is really heavily embedded in verticals where they have a lot of data. So in e-commerce, the data is very well structured and it's very easy for them to show it. Same for like in-person visits or queries like this. So we can see that Google is heavily leveraging their database. So there are some triggers that will get you a success with SGE more often than others. So how best cost near actually is in our database is 100%. I'm assuming there are some exceptions, but we haven't found any yet. And buy. So that also shows that wherever you have the strongest database or knowledge graph, Google is very eager to show SG results because they have higher certainty of these being correct. And few exceptions, and I think these are quite interesting. So I don't think Google wants to touch COVID queries. And I think this is quite interesting. To answer the question on the screen, we analyze something around 20,000 queries per every 2 weeks. And sometimes for some of the projects, we go with deeper checks and we aggregate them. I hope that answers the question. And queries with the phrases side effects or weight loss. So I'm assuming there are some legal aspects at play where Google cannot really or doesn't want to touch these verticals. But outside of these, most of them are fair game. And yeah, some specific drug names also are something that Google doesn't seem to be touching, like Ozempic-related queries. And SG keeps growing. That's actually something that's the most shocking for me because we've been doing R&D for 13 years now, and I have never seen something moving this fast. And not only at Google, I don't think I ever saw a company moving a product as fast. And let me show you a few examples. So currently, as I mentioned, we have 75% of queries returning SG results. But only a few months ago, that was 67. But also, if we go into some of the verticals, I'm gonna go through verticals as well, but also the length of that content is expanding Like it keeps on expanding quite a bit. And as you saw in some cases, these results take up a lot of space. Yeah, let me show you an example. So this is an example from today. So how to, I have no idea why this happens. So this is an example of how to build a website. And as you can see, you have Duda ad underneath. I didn't even click show more, and my whole screen on the desktop is covered with SG results. So organic results are really pushed down quite a bit. Oh, and yeah, that has changed recently as well. So in the very early days of SGE, these pages were very thin. Now it seems that Google is expanding this product quite a bit into the SERPs real estate. Moving forward. And these journeys are really deeply immersive. So sometimes when you search for something, especially top of the funnel queries, like how to buy a bike, how to cook a brisket, how to do something like this, you can go through the whole journey not leaving Google. So that's actually quite interesting to see. Originally, they only had like a query and a few follow-up queries. Now this creates a very well-designed journey. And I guess the next question after that would be, is SG ready to launch? And there are a few things that are not working as good at SG, and let's go through some of the examples, because I guess at this point you might have the idea that SG is going to take over within the next few days. It's not really the case. Fortunately, we have some time. And I love this example because we can see that the featured snippet, so the query, if you don't see that, is how tall is George Bush? Which you would say is a very simple query to ask. I don't know the answer, but I'm assuming Google does. And if you look at the featured snippet, it's actually fairly clear. However, the SG response seems to struggle with that quite a bit. And first of all, what we're seeing is I'm too short to be a president. But secondly, none of these answers here actually meet my intent. So we have a lot of these examples. That's also one of my favorites. We have hundreds of these examples, but how often to audit SEO? And each of these bullet points is a different frequency of these checks, from 2 to 4 times per year to quarterly to every 3 months. Basically, you can see that Google kind of struggles with this query quite a bit. And that's one of the next examples. So Google got really good at deeply understanding the intent, even though this query is technically answered properly. So you know how to count real estate investments. It doesn't really show you what we're searching for, so just the calculator itself. And I feel like these experiences of embedded tools within SERPs are not coming anytime soon. However, we can see that Google doesn't really understand that intent well. I apologize. And yeah, moving forward, the biggest issue right now of SG, and I think this is something that has to be addressed quickly by Google, is that the SGE game is not really fair. And I feel like not only they're looking at multiple lawsuits if they don't address it, I feel like this can come with a lot of consequences for Google as a platform as well. And going through some of these, source attribution seems to be a problem. Very often Google will quote content from one website, even though it's not really, it doesn't belong to that website. So first of all, source attribution, basically copyrights, are something that SG is not dealing with well. Plagiarism and a lot of examples online, and I think Barry can tell us a bit more about these. Outdated information, even if we're asking about the price of something, sometimes Google will show a price from 3, 4, 5 years ago. So this is also something where we have to be really cautious about that. Irrelevant information, issues with product recommendations, and this is one of the biggest ones, conflations of opinions and facts. So sometimes when searching for something, Google will kind of merge comments, opinions, reviews with hard data about a product, as an example. And creation of unfair competition, because again, we're playing by a different set of rules. Being on Google as SEOs, as website owners, as webmasters, some things wouldn't fly with Google well, like publishing an article about your money, your life without an authority. Google can easily do that. You can read more about this in Tomek's article, linked on the screen. So let's look into a little bit of launch time timeline speculation. So first of all, sorry. So one more thing I wanted to mention is between July and September, Google already increased the number of these SGE related queries quite a bit. So not only transactional queries grew 30%, and we can see, I'll show an example of iPhone in a second, but we can see that all these verticals are growing quite a bit. So we can see that Google is pushing a lot of resources towards SGE, most likely because they are competing with Bing AI. This is a big deal. This is one of the rare moments of search engine wars going live. So looking at the milestones of what has to happen before we see that pushed live worldwide. So before the global rollout, we're actually right now at the stage 3. So Google already pushed SGE to Google Labs in Japan. Just recently, a week or 2 weeks ago, Google Labs in India. And I assume that they either will launch more countries or they will just launch worldwide labs, and then we can see that launched in search engines for everyone. So we still have a little bit of time, but we can see that Google keeps testing. So what we see today will most likely change quite a bit. And every single time we run a check, every 2 weeks, every week, we can see that they added new features or they removed some old ones. For example, sources in the middle of the text. They've been there originally, but they kind of changed the layout. They play with how to improve that experience very often. And now the most important part, how can you prepare for what's coming? So first of all, what we see is if you have issues with crawling, indexing, rendering, you most likely will struggle to be included in SGE. We'll get into some of the technical details in a second. What you can do, what we do for our clients, is we track SGE answers very often to see how this trend is changing. And we have few accounts, few clients that will most likely not be affected by this change deeply, but we see a lot of high-risk accounts, especially with top-of-the-funnel content, that will be affected by this change quite a bit. And now I have a little bit of an example with how to create digestible content for AI. So that's something we've done just recently. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know what's happening today with my PowerPoint, but I'll get to that in a second. But first of all, what we can do as of today is we can predict exactly which keywords and what percentage of your keywords will be affected by this rollout. So we can see that this is one of our clients. For this account, we see around 65% of very high or high probability keywords driving most of their business. So that's something I highly recommend doing and checking that on a weekly basis, because if you see that your accessibility is very high, I would really try to build a plan to address it ASAP. And who gets to be in SGE? Let's go into some of the ranking factors. First of all, the number of sources listed in the top right corner keeps on increasing. And with the last update, as the one I showed at the very beginning of this presentation, we saw that sometimes they will even show up to 200 sources. But the average number of sources is growing. And I feel like this is Google's way of approaching the issue of, okay, what are the sources of these elements of text? I feel like this is how Google tries to address the copyright issue. Secondly, some of the responses, again, have more and more pages listed as source, and that brings a lot of challenges with optimizing for these. So if you look at this by iPhone query, we can see that it's really difficult. It changes the whole experience of SERPs, because not only you have a lot of these carousels, you have that merged with local listings here in Austin. Let me just stop scrolling. And you can see that every single one of these arrows goes and gives you a different experience. So that's a very dynamic experience, very difficult to optimize for long term. So I'm wondering if it's going to stay this way. Let's talk about SGE sources a little bit more. So first of all, with this new rollout of 200 sources or more, we see a lot of sources not really ranking for the given query, even in top 100. So if we look at that, 43% of this latest experience launched recently, 43% of sources, they don't rank in top 100 one bit. And 10% rank beyond top 10. However, now it gets tricky. If we look at only the sources that rank within top 100, it's 80%. Let me go to this chart. So basically, if you have sources in SG that already rank within top 10, this is the distribution. So we can see that basically being very high, ranking very high, I have no idea what's happening. Ranking very high for these queries can help you get into this SG layer. So as you can see, 80% of all the sources from top 100 are position 1 through 10. So that's crucial. So still ranking organically is a huge factor to get into SG. And who gets picked in sources, that's one of the crucial things. So first of all, what we've done is we've analyzed all of the sources listed in SG, and we compared that to the similar queries without SG to see what's the ratio. And first of all, from the same rankings, the pages that were included in SG had 10% more content. So we can see that here, basically SG source, non-SG source, you can see that basically for especially top 3, top 4, the length of content seems to matter. I don't know if this is a ranking factor. I wouldn't go this far. Maybe it's just a correlation, but that's an interesting finding at this stage. And one more thing that kind of plays a big role, and I think this is crucial, is your content has to be easy to digest. So what Google doesn't want to include in SG is quite interesting because they don't want to include forums, Quora type of content. So if your content is user generated, most likely the SG layer will have struggles with digesting it. And that's an example of Quora. So I Googled how to fix a broken zipper on Quora, and this is a long page. Like, I really struggled to get the answer. So what we've done with one of our projects is we have experimented and we exported the whole content from this page into ChatGPT, and we've created a summary that we hand fixed later on to see, okay, with these summaries, Google is actually way more interested in this content to include it in the SG layer. So if you have a lot of user-generated content or auto-generated content, summarizing that is a wonderful practice to be included as a source. Yeah, and the last thing that actually kind of changes your chances of being included is the weight of your code. So what we've seen first with our experience, and later on we ran a lot of tests, is heavy JavaScript pages, or basically heavy pages, don't seem to be included as often as pages that are very lightweight, especially when it comes to scripting and rendering cost. So that's something to have in mind. Not only that's going to help with your technical SEO and your indexing, it's also going to increase your chances of being included in SG quite a bit. I feel like this is a very good, very interesting point. So just going through some of the key takeaways. So first of all, SG is coming and will change how users interact with search quite a bit. Secondly, some verticals are more susceptible. So if you're an e-commerce website, I would really look into this and try to figure out how this is going to affect you. And if you're in finance, maybe you still have a little bit of time. And the key at this stage with the level of research we have is you need a lightweight page with clear, concise, and well-structured content. That gives you a way higher chance of showing up in SG. And lastly, you can already estimate with a lot of research, even the one available on our website, you can estimate exact impact of SG on your website, and you can see if you should really do something and try to prepare, experiment with different solutions, something we do, even though it's very dynamic, before it's fully rolled out. And you have time. I don't think it's going to be launched within the next 2 or 3 months. I'm not sure, obviously, but that would really be madness. So you have still time, so start prepping as soon as possible. And some final thoughts, because I know talking to a lot of website owners throughout the last few months of SG, I've noticed that we can divide the crowd, probably here in this virtual room as well, into 2 groups of people who are extremely panicking about SG and have a lot of anxiety, and the other group who's like, this is not going to affect me. We don't have to worry about this at all. I haven't met the middle ground very often. So I feel like, first of all, instead of going into any of these two camps or groups of like, this is going to be crazy or nothing's going to happen, I would really start to look at data, see which keywords are affected and how you can creatively get out of this using the data here as well. And that's it for now. Thank you so much. Let's go into the Q&A. Thank you for watching, and let's go through questions.
I just want to say, before we get into questions, I'm so glad that this is recorded, because I think for everyone that's listening right now, there is so much information and so many wonderful little experiments and tests and a lot of wonderful detail that just begs to be dredged and explored even further. But we've only got a short amount of time. I'm mindful of all the people that are watching right now. This is for agency owners and SEO specialists alike. So I think what we can really do off the back of that and fantastic presentation is really just be able to help them conceptualize these changes and what they mean for their everyday practices. What this means for them, how to measure, how to communicate, and how to track that for their clients, and how to be able to like really make sure that when SGE gets rolled out, if for whatever country or however it does, it's meaningful to them. I'd like to actually go and take the first question to Barry, because I'm really interested to get your thoughts as someone who has their finger on the pulse. Something that you have been capturing is around when Google will default to the new SGE search interface. A lot of things that are sort of going to be concluding in the US December 2023, in India February 2024. I'd love to get your just initial thoughts on what your take is on this.
Yes, everybody wants to know when SGE will fully roll out. It's hard to know. I mean, we have those two clues. When you go to the labs version, it tells you in the US, the SGE experiment or labs will end December of this year, and the India and Japanese version will end in February of next year. That doesn't mean it's not going to launch before or after or whatever. We really just don't know. And people I think understand. I was speaking to somebody this week, and people have to understand that this is not going to be something that people go to or select to go to in the future. This will be the new Google search. People think it's something they're going to go to because it's a labs experiment, it's separate. It's not going to be separate. It's going to be the new Google search, whatever this is. So it will replace what is there. The cool thing is it's just that little area above. And the question is, how often will it trigger by default? And Bart, went through a lot of data on that and showing you right now how often it's triggered by category. And a lot of that matters. But as Bart said, it's changing constantly. And what triggered yesterday might not trigger tomorrow, and how it triggers, or if you have to hit generate. So we just don't know in terms of when it's going to go live. I do think my gut feeling is it will be late, not sooner, later than sooner, meaning probably closer to December than closer to where we are now. Watch it go live tomorrow fully. I doubt it, but I really do think it's going to be later on in the year as opposed to like today or sooner, closer to today. Just because I think there's just so many things that people are looking at and saying how embarrassing it is for Google search to show these things. And Lily Ray came up with a bunch of examples every day. Just when like Google launched feature snippets in the early days, we saw so many embarrassing cases of the responses that Google was giving in those feature snippets. We're seeing the same thing kind of roll out with SGE. And I think Google's taking all this feedback in and trying to reduce that embarrassment as much as possible before it goes out of beta, because once it goes out of beta, then it's really like a real product, and Google can't just say, oh, it's beta, it's not our fault, and just slap on a label there. So I think later on in the year, as opposed to, or I know we're at the end of the year already, but I'm saying between September and December, probably close to the end of December, in my opinion.
Yeah, I really liked how, Barry, you connected it with SERP features. Like at the end of the day, when you think back of SERP features and when they came about, 10 blue links to SERP features, rich content. And now it's just a case of how does that world evolve? And I think this is definitely where this fits. But interestingly, when you mentioned SERP features, some of them stop and start. So it's a case of sometimes a search engine, all of the core ones, Google, Bing, Yahoo, have released a SERP feature. Other search engines pick it up and essentially copy it because they do think it's useful for the user. But in some cases, some of them will start it and actually delay it up to 2 years, for example. So it's not a case of necessarily something just comes out, it's going to improve and be released. It's maybe a case that actually it goes back into the little cubby hole because it needs further development. And I think it's quite clear, I think most people agree, that it's still very immature and there's still a few little false positives and stuff flagging up, which is problematic.
Yeah, 100%. And just in terms of that quality importance, you know, I know that there's a lot that can be able to be improved, and we will be able to see that. But you know, for people who are agency owners and SEOs alike, part of the thing that I thought was really great that you shared, Bartosz, was, you know, on how to prepare for this. I think you said, like, you know, your 3 points, like make sure that your technical SEO, you know, is sound. Track SG answers to your top keywords on a regular basis, and make sure that your content is digestible for AI. And I really, really love that, because I think what this really speaks to is how accessible is your data to be crawled, rendered, indexed, and parsed, so that a search engine can have a meaningful way of understanding who you are, what you represent, and how it can be able to use your text and your assets to be able to populate different things on the SERP. I want to take this next question to maybe to everyone here, because I think going back to, you know, tracking SGE answers on your top keywords. I know, you know, SimilarWeb, you've done a lot of work on this. I caught the wonderful nine things that you, anyway, a wonderful webinar that you did, Gerald, and I loved it. And you've done so much research with SimilarWeb, and of course, Bartosz, you've done a lot of experiments and things like that. I caught that little table of text and textual embeddings, I think, which was trying to find some correlations and be able to give some insights. But particularly, how are we able to actually meaningfully measure this and communicate the changes to clients?
So I'll take part of that. So first of all, I feel like the biggest challenge right now is with clients who rank well. And we have a case of a website that's a content website, ranked top 1 for most of the queries, has featured snippets, but it's never listed as a source at SGE. And I feel like this is really difficult, not only to communicate that, but to get them to start experimenting. Because first of all, you have a lot at stake. You rank very well already. So this is how we got the scripting time. Actually, we were analyzing one of the cases and we saw, okay, the only thing that was an outlier is the cost of rendering that content. And I'm assuming SGE, with such a heavy expansion, they either has to access this content separately, but it seems to be a factor. So we run it on a mass scale to double check that. If it's gonna be like this in a few months, we don't know. But at the same time, I feel like, Barry, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like this is the first time when we know about something this big ahead of time. And for me, this is the most exciting thing ever, because we can experiment as much as we like. And I guess this is the pro of it.
Google has released some sandboxes to us, like when Google launched pre-launched their caffeine index, which is a whole revamp of how the Google search index works. They actually launched that on a sub-site to let SEOs play at it. Google has released a bunch of lab features before, nothing at this scale. Caffeine may have been at this scale in terms of the engineering behind Google, but in terms of user interface, this is like nothing at this scale. And it makes sense they launch it like this as well. So you're kind of right, nothing at this scale at all.
Yeah, and I think it's also the connection with user behavior as well. You know, it's what impact does this have on the other results online? Essentially, you know, when you think of biases, obviously you've got bias. Where's the data coming from? Is it representative of the country the searcher's located? Then obviously you've got all types of bias, like, for example, rank bias, quality bias, and that can have a massive influence on the other results we actually look at and analyze online. And as a result, actually, the other elephant in the room is search engines make a lot of money from paid search. So they obviously don't want to do it on the side of actually this is actually harming our revenue status. Are people now, for example, going on to other engines like TikTok, for example, in which case actually that becomes a much more credible source for brands to start deviating their budgets. So maybe going away from a search engine, a web search engine more specifically, first budget, to actually being a multi-fragmented engine where it's starting to look at different social media, for example.
I just wanted to add one quick thing, because we need to address something very openly with our clients, and that's a lot of websites, they feed on top of the funnel queries. So like, what bike should I choose, or what to do in Rome? And I think a lot of this content is made for SEO. Like I would say 70% of the top of the funnel content, that's rough estimate, is basically content built for SEO. I don't really feel like most people would read this half-hour articles of how to choose a bike. Right now, the core thing is to communicate to our clients, and we have cases like this. This is not an easy conversation of you were feeding on this SEO content. Basically, it's not really content that people read. This is going away because Google will take over what to do in Rome, what to do in Rome with dog, what to do in Rome with, if you're gluten-free, we'll take recipes, and a lot of very simple user intents will basically stay at Google. However, they will still have to purchase, like users will still have to purchase on your website. So it's basically understanding how the user intent will change and what people will encounter on the way. That's why I find it quite exciting, actually, because we're coming back to the core in a way of showing pretty valuable data that has to defend itself on your website.
But on that point about users have to go to the website to purchase, I think the next step, and I think Bing, you saw with ChatGPT with plugins, Bing is super excited. Bing Search is super excited to enable in Bing Chat plugin support as well. Google will probably follow the lead, and once you have plugin support, you could just probably buy directly from. I mean, we see examples of this from Google right now. Buy now, the old checkout buttons that let people buy directly on Google Search and not have to go to the website. Ultimately, the e-commerce store, the publisher, whatever, whoever's making that money doesn't care where the transaction comes from, as long as the money goes to them. So it will be interesting to see how plugins change all this AI generative stuff so that it actually transacts with the actual publisher or e-commerce site or site owner. That's going to be super interesting to see.
There was a patent like this in 2014 or 15 where Google basically patented that they can access multiple e-commerce stores and create a faceted navigation where you can purchase something, but with Google, but when they feed on multiple different stores. So that might happen, sorry.
Definitely, and I think it's actually what we have seen in our own data. The rise of buy now, pay later is insane, particularly here actually in Europe, where the impact of the war has been a bit more impactful. But it's actually a massive shift in people's buying behavior as well. So I think it's a really interesting time when you start thinking of the political and economic situations in some parts of the world as well.
Yeah, 100%. Something that I think Glenn Gabe was talking about, maybe just going back to Google has to make money from this. He was writing about like SGE will only sort of look to roll it out if it's going to be able to net a positive profit for them. So they're looking to test various ways of incorporating ads into the SGE answer box, and maybe even including like ads responsive parts of as part of that answer. What do you think for that, especially in terms of like just trying to fight between organic or ads, or be able to learn from that?
Yeah, I mean, I think when everybody's rumoring and talking about the rumors around SGE, people are like, Google's revenue is going to drop, their stock price is going to be horrible, sell. Advertisers are doomed. There is no way Google's going to fully launch this without being able to monetize that. And that means that people who use SGE have to be encouraged to click on links, either advertisements or organic links. If they're not clicking on one or the other, they're not clicking on both, probably. Now you see that the ads are way above a lot of these. Sometimes some examples are showing the ads way above the SGE responses and below. You're going to see Google incorporate more ways and test how clickable the ads are, as well as how clickable the listings, the organic links or sources or citations are in the actual results. I think Google's incentive to make sure the organic links in the SGE are clickable is going to be very, very, it's going to be important, very important, because if people aren't clicking on the organic links, people are probably not going to click on the ads. It's a very big generalization, but I think Google has every incentive to make sure that if they don't want their revenue to dry up, they're not going to launch this unless they get people to click on the ads. Because 90% of their revenue, 80% of their revenue comes from people clicking on ads, and that's a huge amount of revenue. So I think that's the only savior for the SEO world and SEO not being dead, is that if Google launches something that people aren't going to click on the ads, they're probably also not going to click on the organic stuff. And I think Google doesn't want to see that happen. So I think we'll be okay. But who knows? I mean, you've seen companies self-implode themselves before, so it wouldn't be the first time. But I really don't think. I think we're okay. I think that revenue thing is just so important for Google, and as it should be.
I will just add two things. First of all, is adoption rates. I don't really think that my mom is going to be using SG anytime soon. So I feel like, first of all, and I think, Barry, you published an interesting piece where they mentioned that adoption rates are mostly within very young audience. So that's one. Secondly, when it comes to revenue, I'm fairly sure that Google is going to make a lot of money just launching that, because first of all, they won't be sending a lot of traffic to recipe websites, to travel websites, to top of the funnel stuff where they pay for ads, for AdSense. So I feel like this will be, I have no idea how to estimate that, but a lot of traffic basically is going to stay with google.com, and that has to transcribe to revenue somehow.
And it's interesting, again, going back to that user behavior perspective too. You know, at the end of the day, users got used to paid search over the years, you know, where you could actually almost ignore them without having, for example, an extension on your browser. And essentially this, having a brand new interface, being super dynamic, where you've got scrolling left to right, not just infinite scroll on where's page one anymore. I think it's really interesting time for Google potentially to capitalize on this, and actually, because there's a bit of ambiguity, but like the old days of native advertising, where it was truly native and it was a very hidden sponsored result, that becomes a really interesting world for search engines.
Yeah, 100%. I would like to maybe now sort of like pan over to the EEAT: experience, expertise, authority, and trust. There is so much evidence that Google is rolling out to really reward the way that things are written for experience, by recognizing certain brands as known entities for topical authority, for authors for topical authority, and even testing things like mentioned in drop downs, similar to how like FAQ rich results would appear for websites. What are your sort of comments about how we can be able to really ensure that clients, you know, can sort of navigate this space and look at the way that they're authoring content, marking things up, and ensuring that they've got a really good handle on what that will look like with SGE?
It's a painful topic here, Nick, because they don't really play by these rules by themselves. So it's hard to address that. But basically, EEAT and all these other things aside, Google needs that knowledge graph. Oh, we can call it however we like. Any set of information that the web can agrees upon. And we can see that in queries that everything that's matched clearly or closely to the database they have has almost 100% success rate with SGE. So for us as website owners, as agencies, helping our clients structure their content, not only EAT, but with schema markups, everything possible to mark up as much content as possible will help out, because these algos are extremely dynamic. They're machine learned, not manually created. So that really helps us out to basically feed that database.
Yeah. Barry, I wondered if you have any comments with some of the things that Google is testing to further strengthen signals around this to be able to help us provide greater evidence for clients and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, Google, when I spoke to Google about this when they first launched, they were like, I asked them, what's the type of content that you're going to go ahead and rank in the SGE results, are going to show up in the SGE results? And they're like, it's going to be the stuff we generally rank well today, the stuff that has high authority, that we could trust, all that EEAT stuff. So I mean, that's proven by Bart's study, where it shows like most of the stuff that SGE links to is in the top 10 results already, and it's the stuff that generally Google ranks today. So I think it's really continuing to do that. Now, the question is why SEOs are like, why should I go ahead and create content that Google's going to just take and use to generate answers, and I'm not going to make any benefit from it? Ultimately, the same question came up with the featured snippets. And featured snippets, Google used that and used AI, a lot of AI, to go ahead and rewrite portions of the featured snippets or to generate the featured snippets in some way based on your content. And it's similar to that, but it's a lot more in your face and it's less clickable than it used to be. And initially, the featured snippets, when they first launched, were very not clickable. The links were tiny. They really had no. The ones we as SEOs complained loudly, they added bigger links, and everybody wanted feature snippets after that. So I think we're going to see something similar there, where if you are cited in a AI generated answer and on SGE, you're going to want, and you lose that one day, you're going to be like, oh, I want it. It's like a pride thing. And eventually, with maybe e-commerce integration or lead integration or any type of call to action integration, maybe that's going to be very valuable. I think Google and Bing are very concerned about how the publisher world is going to react when this fully goes live. So I do think there is still going to be incentive for publishers to write really great content so that it could rank well in SGE and other areas, just because I think Google and Bing are going to focus on driving as much traffic to those publishers in any way they can, like we discussed before. Maybe I'm too googly and I believe in Google too much, but I just see the other way to be too much of a downside for the success of Google in the future, as well as for the success of Bing in the future. I think they need to come out ways for publishers to want to create amazing content going forward. And that's really the only way.
It's a very interesting one. I think definitely for agencies to, when you speak about EAT, it's about making sure you know of websites that do a really good job of it. One, for example, we spoke about recently was Zapier. Zapier do fantastic work on best of for automation tools, which is what you would think is a very crowded market. So have a look at them. Like, some of their blog posts rank for thousands of keywords that they've had for years. But the new the experience, Zapier, for example, will actually update some of their images on their website to actually account for a new beta of a software. It's insane level of detail, but that is exactly what Google and the engines look for when they speak of expertise, expert authority, and trust. So definitely that's the first thing on that. I think also this is quite honestly an evolution of backlinks. So who here is creating backlinks on mobile devices? You've got countries like, for example, Switzerland, they're 58% mobile. You've got other countries like Indonesia, it's in the high 70s. Mobile is growing hugely. Search is now slowly starting to shift over to that. The only people eventually who are going to be creating backlinks are web developers and SEOs. So in essence, as a search engine, trying to now think about the evolution of backlinks based on this behavior, and can they get now behavioral signals from this new SERP to try and determine what people determine as being quality.
Yeah, awesome. And I just, I want to sort of like, maybe I'm just thinking of like one of Lily Ray's like more recent tweets. When we're talking about content, Google's always said that, it doesn't necessarily care whether it's coming from a human or whether the AI, helped to be able to write that content. The advice has always been the same. If it's sort of out there for the primary purpose of manipulating ranking in search results, it's a violation of their spam policies. So really take that in consideration. ChatGPT and generative text are really useful resources, but it doesn't necessarily take away from the value that a real human can be able to provide from their perspective, from their experience, that can be able to actually lend and be able to create some real credible value for the user. So I wanted to be able to just also bring that into the fold, because I'm sure you've had a lot of questions about, something that you just said, Bartosz, like, okay, well, if we're, considering like the knowledge graph, and we're wanting our, business to be related to this, to these topics, so that we can be able to pass off our products, or we want to be able to pass off our services in that kind of like really infantilized kind of perspective. Then you kind of now need to bring them into the nuance of like, oh, it's a lot greater than just like pushing out content for the sake of content. And I think that's a really, really important one to keep in mind. So any comments with that, Bartosz?
We don't have much time. We have like 4 minutes.
Yeah, sorry.
If we may, I would switch that conversation just a tiny bit for the last 4 minutes into how we can act upon all that. So first of all, I would, fight fire with fire. So first of all, if we have a lot of user-generated content, again, I would use, however we can, either ChatGPT or any AI to make Google's choice of choosing our website easier. And first of all, this is not going to help only SGE, but in general, SEO and users, because these summaries or whatever are very helpful. But to my best knowledge, Duda is doing a lot of cool stuff with AI already, and you have some cool results with how you use AI to build websites that actually rank fairly well. So I can actually forward the question to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't work at Duda, but I can say, just at a high level, Duda's AI agency assistant, which they've recently brought out, scans content and is able to create SEO tags based on what their content is, and the business profile and the industry best practices, which I think is phenomenal. In the session on 10x efficiency that I think is on the third day, we'll have the actual founders of Duda be able to show you how that enables agencies to be able to shorten time on routine tasks, and of course be able to enhance their SEO offerings. So in that founders talk, Itai and Amir will be able to discuss how Duda really is able to embed AI into a lot of many areas of the product. Look, I think that's a really, really great place to be able to bookend things. I want to say thank you so much to all of you. And I wanted to sort of just go around and say, like, look, I think we've opened up a huge can of worms here. We've got so many great topics that can come from this. So how can people be able to interact and be able to forward you questions after this? I'll start with you, Bartosz.
Okay. So for me, it's bartosz@onely.com. Hit me up with any questions. We have a group of real hungry nerds researching SGE on a daily basis. We only had 30 minutes today, so we didn't go too deep, but this is a topic that could last the whole day. So that, Twitter, any social media. And thank you so much, folks, for having me. And thanks to my wonderful co-host as the last sentence. Thank
you. And of course, I think it really needs no introduction, but Barry, how can people be able to find you after this?
If you cannot find Barry Schwartz, you shouldn't be an SEO. Barry, don't answer that. If someone cannot find you.
Well, if you search for Barry Schwartz on Google or Google SGE, you'll find some other Barry Schwartz. So do that and you'll be fine. And great presentation, Bart, and great conversation, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And of course, the wonderful Gerard Murphy, how can people be able to find you after this?
Yeah, absolutely love the stats in particular, Bart. Really, really love the presentation overall in the chat, everyone. Just on Twitter, Gerald Search, or actually I prefer LinkedIn, if I'm being honest. So feel free to connect anyways and ask any messages you guys want.
Thank you so much. Of course, I'm Nick Ranger. You can find me on Twitter or on LinkedIn at Nick Ranger SEO. Of course, please, if you've loved this, please hit that like button, hit that notification bell for all new videos that get rolled out. This has been DudaCon 2023. And of course, this is just day 1 of 3. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button because we've got some phenomenal content coming up with the next few days. Thank you so much. And of course, let's keep the chat going. Let's jump on Twitter and keep it going. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nick.
Awesome.
Well done, everyone. You bunch of nerds.
Love that.
What have we got on here? We've got dropping people off, picking people up. See you, Nick. Hello, everybody.
Morning, Chris.
Hello.
Evening, Shane.
It's
Is it-
afternoonish.
Where are you? What time zone are you in, Josh?
Mountain time in Colorado. So
What
1
time's that?
hour ahead of California. Well, 1 hour later than California.
Right. So, God, we are truly cross-planet at this point in time. Shane, whereabouts are you again? You're in the Philippines, right?
Philippines, and it's 2 a.m. in the morning.
Look at you trooper.
Look at this. I'm
What a good
I'm
man.
ready to go.
What a good man. Hannah's making all the effort from where, Hannah?
From Lichfield, which is in the middle of the UK. So it's nice normal work time, like 7 p.m. Shane,
Are you on British summertime minus 40 years, right?
yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Shane, did you go to bed or have you like stayed up? That's the
No,
question.
I went to bed at 8:30. And then I just woke up, and when this is over, I'll go back to bed. But then I got my live stream. So
And you're only 23. You've got all the energy, mate.
Oh,
That's the thing.
yes, I love you, mate. I love you. Thank you.
So Nick and the guys did a really good job just a minute ago setting all this up, because I think none of what we're going to talk about around the stuff that you guys deliver as business owners has any hope in hell of succeeding if the stuff that they're talking about doesn't actually end up happening. Quite a lot of it is rigorously worked out and worked through. One thing I've been struggling with in the last few days, planning like what we're going to talk about, how we're going to have how we're going to run this session, is that like no one really knows what's going to happen. Lots of people are pushing on a lot of areas, and I think that something reminded me the other day of a quote from a letter that Theodore Roosevelt, I believe, wrote. He said around the man in the arena and not being a critic of those who are not. And I think everyone who's in this space right now, whether they're a SaaS platform, an agency, a tech provider, they're in the arena and trying to do stuff. And something's going to break, something's going to go really well. It's crazy. We could be on the verge of something really, really cool. We could potentially not. Who knows? But in this session, we're going to be talking about your 3-year business plan, winning agency strategies in the age of AI, which means that everything I just said may be thrown out the window because all of our business plans might change tomorrow because of a new feature update or a massive price hike from OpenAI potentially and things like that. I've got a few slides that we can go through, and if the clever people in the background can bring them up and then drop them off when we're all having a lovely chat. I'll introduce you guys really shortly, but I'm going to get my pound of flesh here. I run the OMG Center. We are a digital agency growth accelerator. So if you want more time, more money, less stress, more quickly for your agency, hit the link at the bottom there, and we're pretty good. So I had a little bit of a play prior to this all kicking off. We did a little test call, and you guys sent your bios over for your introductions. Well, I threw all those out the window because you're all superheroes in my eyes, and AI superheroes no less. And I really hope this goes down well. So you've got your own superhero introductions, and I used Photoshop's beta AI generative thing to create new headshots for you all. So here we go. First of all, we've got Shane Hodge. Shane, as the guardian of the digital galaxy at the Camel Co., Shane has championed solutions for agencies worldwide for over a decade. Do you like it so far? Merging his old school ethos with a fervor for AI, he has crafted a realm where Wall-E meets web design. That's Shane Hodge. Shane, have you got anything else you want to add about yourself and Camel Co.?
I'm a really good cook, Chris.
Yep.
I'm a really good cook. That's good. Wall-E is our superhero on our live stream about AI, and we do the good, bad, and the ugly every Wednesday morning. And AI, I think it's brilliant, it's bad, it's scary, it's awesome.
There we go. And now on to the next superhero in the pack. We have Hannah Carthy from Vakir. Look at that, Hannah. AI generative image editing did not make your eyes look crossed for some reason. And I don't know how that happened. See, there's a long way to go, everyone. So Hannah Carthy is the SEO sentinel of Vakir. She wields over 8 years of search experience, seamlessly merging technical SEO with ingenious content. With a track record of championing brands like the LTA and Le Creuset, she crafts strategies that resonate with audiences and deliver powerful ROI. Tell us more stuff, Hannah.
God, that is horrendous, isn't it? If anyone wants to know why they shouldn't use AI, that's pretty up there. So at Vakir, we use AI in some slightly different ways. Like, we don't just use it to speed things up in terms of delivering work. We use it for demystifying like how our account management goes and actually quantifying what used to be unquantifiable. Like, how happy is your clients? Let's let the robots tell us rather than the team, because it's always consistent then across managers. So hopefully we can talk about some of the more exciting things that we have been doing with AI.
Awesome. And I know that we're going to be touching on quite a lot of those points as we go through, because as you'll find out in a minute, I've broken the system again because we've got some challenges coming up for you guys. And finally, Josh, you did not, you fared quite well here, but you didn't get away with no AI, I'm afraid. So Josh Neymark, founder at Fixed 8 Media. This was from your LinkedIn profile picture, so I had to get rid of the iMac and turn it into a quantum computer there. Hopefully you're okay with that one. So heralded as the web weaver, Josh breathed life into a vision in 2010, crafting a web design agency that humanizes digital experiences. With a history in Emmy award-winning production and heartfelt beats of cutting-edge technology, he's the hero that turns clients' dreams into digital masterpieces. How do you like them apples, Josh?
Better than what I would have said, for sure, Chris. Yes.
Awesome.
Almost
no one noticed that this was all done by AI, just so you know. I thought I'd do it, and if it went wrong, then I could say the AI did it wrong. But anyway, so we're all kind of, we want to talk about the business plan for running an agency and running a business for the next 3 years. It's really hard to do that because we don't know what's going to come up in the next 6 months, next 1 year, let alone anything else. But there are some key things that we can talk about that will feed into a wider business case. And I think that the best thing that we can do is we can have a conversation over the next 45, 50 minutes or so. Take some questions as they come in, because there's some brilliant questions that are going on through the chat throughout the session so far. And what we're going to do is essentially, hopefully, set the world to rights on a few areas as well. Hopefully, as well, you guys disagree on a few matters. If not, I'm going to be the devil's advocate and cause a fight. So, are you guys ready for some challenges? Hopefully, these are fun challenges to a certain degree. We'll start with Josh answering, and then we'll go through. Literally, if you disagree, please do shout, because maybe I've got these wrong. So, this is a client's perspective. If I can do this stuff with AI by myself, what the heck do I need you for? So if a client is seeing all of this stuff in the news, in the media, they're probably seeing AI generated reports, or they're seeing tools coming out that are doing things that you might well be doing. There's big ad campaigns at the moment around web development, app development, software development, all sorts of things like that, SEO, PPC, etc. And clients are quite rightly, in a sense, wondering if an AI can do it now, what do I need you for? So, Josh, what would you must have had a question similar to this at least so far, at the very least this year. So, what's your typical sort of thoughts behind these kinds of questions? What do you do to help build this business plan, should we say, that minimizes these kinds of questions?
You picked some of the older guys to answer the questions about AI. I think that, yes, we've had this a number of times and we've seen this coming. And I really think of AI much like I think of other disruptive technologies that have come about and continue to come about every year, right? So it wasn't that long ago that MP3s almost destroyed the music licensing industry, right? Artists stopped making music, and people were using Napster and sharing content, and Spotify and Apple Music change the world again, right? So now we have a new way of licensing it. So I think that it's not something that people need to be afraid of. It's something people need to realize how they're going to harness it for their business. And one of the things that I think is key for agencies today is to really focus on the experience that they have, the successes they found, because AI is a wonderful tool, but at the end of the day, it's still zeros and ones, isn't it? It's still programming. And at least to my understanding, programming doesn't understand when somebody smiles on a design review call or when somebody cries when they're upset. It does not understand archetype or persona, not to the degree that a human being does. So I think as agencies look at it, focus on your strengths and then focus on how you can be using AI to improve client experience, to be more efficient with your time. And there's a lot of ways that we're starting to incorporate that, here at Fixate as well.
And Shane, I know that you work with a huge amount of clients on a large, globally. In fact, I presume that there's differences in the kinds of questions you get depending on the project types and project sizes. But when you're thinking about the future of builds for clients of the Camel Co, how are you looking at these kinds of questions as they come up? Because presumably someone's thinking, if I can press 3 buttons and have an okay website or an okay product, what do I need you for, Shane? Why do I need to invest in the Camel Co?
Well, apart from the fact that we've got wonderful personalities and we're extremely good looking.
Yeah, no, I'll take that. Sure.
Okay. I'm with Josh, and Josh has always got the words of the wise, right? And in our case, because we deal with the agency and we deal with larger agencies, believe it or not, AI is a big topic in content. It's a topic in SEO, but it's still coming down to that. The human factor can still make it better, refine it better, and away you go. And Josh is right, it's a tool. However, for the small to middle agency, this is the most dangerous question for them. Because if the guys that own the smaller agency fall into that trap of thinking, yes, AI, it's going to do everything, I'm going to build sites faster and sit back and be rich and famous, they're going to fail. Right?
Yep.
It's the wise ones that you should be listening to, like Josh, right? And sit back and think it's a tool to improve things to make more money. It's not a tool to take everything over and make more money.
Yeah. And a client comes to you, pick up the phone, send an email, etc., and say, I've just had your proposal, all makes sense, but I've just seen that there's a couple of buttons and a few widgets that will do this all for me, some AI kind of thing. If I can do that, can you knock a few quid off the proposal? Can you take a few $ off there? How are you planning into your business? Questions that are undoubtedly going to make sales either slightly harder because you have to have this conversation, or more difficult in the sense that you've got essentially an additional objection to overcome and handle.
I think you've got to be open and honest about it, and then just say it's like anything else, that we're the professionals. So even with AI, we're studying it every day, we're refining it every day, we're using it, so we know a lot more, and that's why you need us. Right?
Yeah,
because we know the zeros and ones better than you do, because you make, kitchen cabinets, right? You focus on kitchen cabinets. We focus on the zeros and ones.
And yeah, I get it. I'm just struggling with if a client says they don't get it from that perspective, right? So they don't know, and there's pixels on the screen. It's the same as it always has been. I'm sure you've had
time to get lost, Chris.
Right? There we go. That's what I was aiming for. Who knows?
I tell them to get lost, because they're the same sort of person that says, hey, it's only a small shift, thinking it's PowerPoint. We don't want them. Let them go. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Right?
And maybe that's the right thing to do with the right opportunities in front of you. You can say no to clients. And one thing that I say to almost all the agencies that the OMG Center works with is there is always the right time to say no to a client. Yes. And if you're doing all of your lead scoring and everything seems pretty good, and then all of a sudden they want a discount because they've realized that an AI can do it 20% as good, may not be the right fit for you. Hannah, you do a lot of client services work in the SEO and PPC side of things rather than in delivering products like websites and so on. What have you encountered any of these kinds of questions when it comes to maybe content production and things like that?
Yeah, I would say very similar to what Josh and Shane are saying. Like, we're the experts, we've got the experience, so hopefully clients don't want to use the AI to do everything. But I think what we found the biggest kind of game changer is being really transparent where in the process AI comes in. So for us, for example, we have a process when we're writing content where we work through we start with our analysis, we come up with the ideas, then we're writing those kind of skeletons and structures as to what we want to cover, and then we're producing the content itself. And when we're doing that, what we focus on is basically making sure that we say at this bit, this is where the AI is going to be used, and or we can do it manually, and here's the price difference and the savings. What we found initially when everyone jumped on the AI bandwagon, we instantly got clients saying to us, okay, so where is it happening? Like, how do we use it? And we were almost hesitant to be open and honest because we thought they're going to instantly want to cut their retainers. But actually opening that process up and showing them how we're training the AI and how we're getting better results seems to work a lot better for us. And actually talking to them about how if you just put a prompt into ChatGPT and hope for the best, it will be rubbish and you have to have worked through it to be able to understand it. But I'd challenge your challenge as well. Sorry for the surprise argument with you, Chris, and say we also get a lot of our clients begging us to not be using AI in places where they could, especially for content production. Like, we get the same writer that we've used consistently suddenly get accused of, did you use AI to produce this? And we're like, no, it's the person that sat at their desk in the office who's done it for 6 months.
Yeah.
And actually, if we used AI, you might get a better result because it's churning out meta descriptions. So I think we have the inverse to fight against as well.
So one thing that good challenge back, and I love a challenge on the other way around. Otherwise, I'd just be listening to some clever people and having a great evening. So thank you. It's really important for agencies and for anyone delivering a service to have their objections handling in place, should we say? And that's whether it's sales or anything else. But when every agency we've been working with from a digital marketing point of view, so SEO in particular, we've been working with them in the perspective where we're essentially suggesting that you should have a positioning statement, should we say, on the use of AI in your business. And I think a bit like when you're looking at how you handle cookies and how you handle data of clients and things like that, you should have something very specifically separate that says, these are the things we do, these are the things we don't do, and these are the reasons why, and a date on there, of course, so that then if you do update it, it's the most recent version. So as an example, we use generative AI to help come up with title ideas and cluster some content in keywords and stuff like that. That's all we use it for. Or we use it to create article briefs that a human will write or something along those lines. And again, I think if a client says, please don't use AI to do the writing, absolutely makes perfect sense. But you want 5,000 words a month of content for whatever random crazy reason. Well, you might need to use it to at the very least create briefs and things like that. A great thing that I used it for a few days ago with a web agency actually was to run their entire scope of work through ChatGPT and essentially act as a web developer, a senior web developer, and find any areas within this scope of work that could cause scope creep. So that's how you could use ChatGPT or an alternative there. And it will mean that you can de-risk some of your growth things. One of the comments that came up a short while ago, sorry, we were talking over it at the time, was around AI will eventually replace entire marketing and marketing and writing departments with those human positions to prompt and QA the AI. Now, clients are saying, if I can do this by myself, what do I need you for? If you're the owner of a business, your staff may well be also thinking, if AI can do this, what do they need me for? How are you covering that one? Because I know all of you guys, you have teams, you have staff, you have people that will naturally have some kind of reservations over these sorts of things. Josh, have you had any of these conversations with your team? Kind of like, don't worry, it's all good, or fear for the worst?
We have an AI policy. It's not on the site, but we talk about it internally. And while we begin to step into more uses of it, we have a rule. You are not allowed to use AI to replace thinking ever in this agency. And I think that if we operate from that premise, we'll be okay, right? In how we use it. But yeah, I would say that every agency probably needs to think about their position and be ready to share it with the client and be ready to say if you're going to accommodate it or not, right? Because Shane may say, no, I'm not going to accommodate it because I'm not going to build a site like that. I may say that too, right? But you need to have those answers ready, I think, for clients when they ask you.
And Shane, in a part of the world where realistically the cost of living is going up and the wage rate is going up, but it is traditionally a cheaper offshore alternative for most of the Western world from a delivery of services point of view, at the very least. How are you looking at this? If I can do it with AI, what do I need my team for? Because I know that you've got a bloody good team of really nice people that you have, you treat as a family to a certain degree. What are you having any conversations like this internally?
Yeah, we had a conversation from the start because we're like, Josh, we put human first, all right? Because our team is like a family to us. And I've had a big fear for third world countries on AI, right? And I've made that known to everyone that the basic content, basic website, I believe is in danger, that AI, I think, will take care of that business. And so, if they're in India, Pakistan, Philippines, that basic stuff, that's goodbye, right? So a lot of people will miss out there. And we focused on that. We thought there's going to be casualties, and that's a fact.
Yeah.
And we then decided, well, what can we do? And we focused on upskilling everyone. We openly and honestly use AI to generate discussion, to give initial ideas. We use AI as a chatbot, so it's taking care of those initial discussions. And then everyone else, we've just focused on lifting their game as designers, as content writers, approvers, changers, and a lot more in development work. So we faced it from the get-go. I have a fear of it for some smaller, freelancers, things like that. I think they're in trouble unless they upskill.
Yeah. Okay. And Hannah, how are you? Have you had to have any of these kinds of conversations internally? Because if a client's asking it, they're usually asking it of someone who's delivering the account management at the least. So then there may well be a knock-on internal conversation. Has that happened at any point so far? Are you planning for that kind of thing?
Yeah, what's crazy to me is my more junior team members who tend to be on the younger side. Absolutely love any form of AI and have typically been the ones really driving the initiatives forward on our side, which initially to me, I was a bit shocked because I think if I was the junior that was potentially at risk thinking, could my job go? Could I be replaced by AI because I'm doing these lower skilled jobs? Then I think, I don't know if I'd be the one pushing it forward. But I think what's crazy is they want to because they see it as time that they can spend learning and developing. So from their perspective, great, they can speed up the delivery of their slightly lower skilled jobs, spend more time developing themselves, deliver the same value to the client, and then be in a position to progress quicker. And actually the juniors that we have that do that, they're much further in their career than I thought they would be. So we've got people who've maybe got 3-4 months max experience, and actually we're seeing them be in a position where we're saying, actually, could you manage that client account? A lot more, which potentially you'd be looking at 1.5 to 2 years experience to be in that thinking position.
Yeah. Awesome. That's awesome. I'm going to move on to the next challenge because this one kind of underpins quite a lot of the business plan aspect of things. Shane, you mentioned that you that you use chatbots as part of some of the discovery or the decision making process, or the talking through parts of the process. How are you, as challenge number 2? How are you growing your own business? And is AI any part of that growth plan? Are you adopting anything from an AI point of view to specifically grow the business aspect? Or is it focused, if you are using AI in the business, just for delivery of services and things?
Yeah. Okay. So for us, if we look at it on a support basis, we have, I don't know, thousands and thousands of sites that we support. And what we found, a lot of that is just questions that you can get in Duda FAQs, Camel FAQs, and we just took a chatbot and we taught it all the questions, the answers, and we're using that for an initial support. And it does a brilliant job, and it's also multilingual. So, you know, we've got like Taiwan, where someone can ask a question in Chinese and it'll answer it. Well, the Camel doesn't have to worry about it. So we've put ChatGPT, not ChatGPT, in as a chatbot, and that's automatically improved our support so fast and by such a great amount, because those initial bloody annoying questions can be answered by AI.
Yeah.
And we can focus on answering the really good stuff that makes us money and helps people out. That's number 1. Next, I love it for the team, the way it's used now as almost like a member of the team to generate discussion. You know, Hannah's right. The younger kids have blown me away how much they love it, right? And so we use it as a generator of discussion and ideas, and that's what's helping us grow as well, because we're doing things faster.
And Hannah, you I know, because we've had a few conversations about these sorts of things. You mentioned it at the top of the session that you're using AI for things that used to not be so quantifiable in terms of delivering better account management and all sorts of things like that. I think one thing, there's agency growth, business growth. A key area of that is retention of clients, more so sometimes than acquisition of new clients. Yes, you absolutely need new clients, but retaining the original ones is a requirement, a prerequisite of growth. And in order to do that, you need proper account management. You need proper tooling. You need proper resourcing. And what are you using in the business for the growth aspect around that, with AI in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So we always struggled with, you know, those classic agency spreadsheets you have of all your clients, and you like red, amber, green, how happy they are and how stable an account is. Like everyone has one, right? Yeah. So what we used to always argue about is, if it's red to me, would it be red to Chris, or would he put it as amber because maybe he's less cautious than me?
Mm-hmm.
And we used to try and put numbers against things, but like on a scale of 1 to 10, everyone's 7's different.
Yeah.
And we ended up in this situation where also our managers were almost like missing commercial cues of somebody maybe being about to cancel because they're not used to hearing those cancelling noises, of someone being like, oh, could you send me my scope of work and my contract? They didn't know that meant because we're reviewing it internally. Or potentially, like, I don't know, it's kind of that sign you want to buy more that people weren't picking up on. A client might not say, I have additional budget, but they might say, performance has been great. How do we scale? And individuals maybe weren't picking that up. And so we've implemented a tool. I'm not affiliated to it, but it's called Kaizen.ai, if anyone wants to look at it. What that does is it plugs into all of our Google Meets with our clients, reads our emails, processes it all, and it gives a consistent sentiment score. And it does that at stakeholder level, day-to-day contact, and then everybody else that's involved. So we can say, okay, for this client that's paying us a lot of money, their senior stakeholders more negative than all of the other people paying us less money. Why is that?
Yeah.
And it also picks up trigger words. So if somebody says the word scale, it gives a little alert that I can see, and I can say to the team, well, what were you talking about? Shall we dig into that interaction? And then we go through the transcript. And so we use that as a training tool for the team to get better at their interactions, for us to pick up issues, for us to kind of grow anything we need. But then also for that sentiment tracking, retention piece of knowing how happy people are. And if you're billing account management time, it also tracks the number of interactions. So it looks at the average word count of all of our emails and how long that would take a typical person to either type or read. And it calculates loosely how many minutes you've spent on your emails plus your calls, which is way better than manually time logging, which we know everybody hates.
Absolutely. And just to throw it back a little bit to one of your points there, Shane, about chatbots. A1 Drone Shots UAS, which I don't think is your real name, mate. If you can pop that one up on the screen there, backroom cool guys, says, most web chatbots are extremely frustrating. 99% of the time you have you still end up searching for live help. If you have technical questions, chatbots are not quite there yet. What are your thoughts? Do you sometimes have customers go, this is infuriating, this is a pain in the neck?
I think it's on how much time you spend setting it up. Right?
You're right.
Because, yeah, AI, it uses what you give it and then it starts to learn.
Yeah.
Right? So in our case, we spent weeks and weeks and weeks refining it, training it, so it can answer those level 1 questions, right? But so we've had no problem with it because we knew it was going to be important, and we spent the time to give it the right data, teach it, and we've had no complaints. And it's actually, one, it's unbelievably smart, but two, it's really nice to talk to.
It's nice to talk to. It's got a nice personality, has it?
Yeah, it's got a great personality. It's sort of half Australian, Filipino, you know.
Oh yeah, awesome, brilliant. So there was another question in here just now as well, which I think would be pretty cool because I'm guessing there's a lot of stuff that's going to come up in the next session with Itai and Amir. But Fireside Creative Chat just said, can Duda create an AI-based tool based on site comments so they are ranked in order of urgency for changes that we can view when we log in instead of super annoying emails? So kind of like a cool ticketing system. I think in the future for full-on agency management and things like that, that'd be quite cool as a ticketing system for issues. Hannah, I know that as part of running an agency, there's a lot of emails backwards and forwards. I presume some kind of like ticketing system at an agency scale is quite an interesting thing to look at as well, right?
Yes, I guess it's just hard to imagine. Like, I always want that manual control, like over what's a priority, what's not when it comes to ticketing, and actually getting that additional detail in. We've run some processes before where we've tested it and we've never, brutally be honest, been able to get it to work right. But I don't know if that's our AI skill set issue rather than AI not being the right answer for it. But I think that sounds really cool if you had that in Duda. Like, that sounds like that would be great. So I assume someone listening is going to make that happen. Yeah,
well, fingers crossed, eh? And Shane, presumably with web changes and issues and bugs and things like that, you've got internal processes to consider. Would AI help in that matter? Would it make things a little bit more difficult? What's your take at the minute?
Yeah, because I think we're a little bit different because we have our own back-end process, and we pretty well, like, we don't use site comments at all, right? Because it just doesn't work for our process. And you've got to imagine we're at a lot higher volume than everyone. We don't want people commenting, Hannah. We don't want to hear it, right? Because it'll just wreck the system. And I'd like to hear what Josh has got to say about that.
I would too, but I think Josh has accidentally clicked the link to the Kaizen website and it's taken him out of the session. We will ask him when he comes back. So interrupt me when he jumps back and we'll see what he thinks, because I know that he deals with a lot of web changes and things like that as well. I think the growth of an agency, the growth of any business you're going to have to take AI as part of the plan. Besides retention and things like that, Hannah, what are you at Vikir looking at doing in terms of growth changes, building the agency over the next few years? Is AI a big part of that?
Yes and no. I think it's hard to say 100% yes when AI is so new and we see so many changes. And like, we always laugh because whenever we interview anyone for a role, they go, "What's your 3-year plan?" And we're like, "It's more like a 6-month plan." And I think that's because there's so many new things coming out every day. Like, probably 4 months ago, I wouldn't have imagined that we'd be using AI to listen into our client calls and score sentiment. That wouldn't have been on my roadmap. But I think what we are focused on doing when it comes to really growing with AI is making sure that we're testing, we're documenting tests, but we're also coming back to our tests. So one version of ChatGPT, whatever version it was, we used to do some content, and quite frankly, it was the worst. Like, it was not usable, and we tried to build it into our processes and nothing worked. We then tried some other content tools and they were great. And then we went back to ChatGPT because technology had advanced and actually it did solve the problem we had. So I think it's about testing, iterating, and then retesting to allow for the changes in order to actually grow using AI. Don't just give up at the first pass.
So quite a lot of the agencies that we work with, naturally, one part of an accelerator program is growing the agency from a business point of view. So that's building an actual business plan. Totally agree with you, Hannah, that if you underpin an entire business plan around one feature or one tool or one kind of direction, it could well change in months or weeks. One thing that I think that that is a massive win from an agency's point of view is the now at scale opportunity to repurpose things. If you're looking at marketing for your agency, you can make nearly 70 or so pieces of shareable, relatable, engageable content off of one 1,000-word article that you spend time writing as a human being, so that it resonates with your user, with your perfect tone of voice, with all of the authority signals that all the SEO nerds in the previous session were talking about. You write that piece of content, and you can use AI to leverage the nuts off of it. You can go crazy. You can turn it into lots of individual captions on social media. You can record a video and let an AI tool pull out the individual salient points and throw that on Instagram Reels, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, wherever else there's videos. The opportunity to leverage your agency's marketing at scale to grow your business, that should be part of your plan. The specific tool or the specific way you do it, fine, probably going to change. But my advice to almost any agency that I'm working with in terms of their business plan and growth is you've got to be everywhere all the time, all at once, if you're selling something which has a broad appeal. If you're very, very niche, then you can use it to leverage that researching aspect of your client acquisition. Who do I need to talk to in particular? We built a absolutely brilliant, I say brilliant, it's ugly as hell. It's a spreadsheet which has got every previous client that you've ever worked with in your agency, and it's got all of the things about that agency relationship, you know, average size, average type of thing, whether or not the agency was running with a decent profit margin with that client, were they really good payers, were they really easy to talk to, etc., so on. And then we threw that through the data visualization part of ChatGPT's new cool tools and things, and it threw out, here are all the core key areas that are the same, and that helped the agency with their positioning. That positioning is now a big part of their business plan, and all it took was 2 hours in a spreadsheet. That's pretty cool. Shane, how are you beyond the chatbots and things like that? How are you looking at like the marketing growth or the sales opportunities for the business with AI in any of there?
Yeah, Hannah knocked it on the head. You know, it's not a 3-year business plan. It's 6 months. I thought about, it's like my blog, okay? In January, my blog is Aussie humor. I use a lot of movie quotations, a lot of stories. ChatGPT could not write my blog in January. We're now in September. ChatGPT can write my blog, right? Not as 100% like Shane would write it, but pretty bloody close, I'm telling you. It's got an Aussie sense of humour. It probably watches every movie I've ever watched because it learns.
Yeah.
Now, where's the benefit of that? Exactly what Chris said. You've got like this 1,000+ words that you can take so much with. And our social media posts have improved out of sight. Why? Because we've got all this great content. We can focus on creating something better rather than just focus on, well, we better do the basic first. We let AI do the basic stuff. And then we take that meaty stuff, Chris. And that's what we turn into money-making opportunities. And so I like what you talked about. That's the way to do it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
We'll spend more time and effort on that, taking the meat and turning it into a gourmet dish.
Lovely. Love the way you put that, gourmet dish. You need to write that in your blog. I totally agree with you. And I think that as part of your growth plan for the next few years, everyone listening to this right now, if you're running a business or you're thinking of starting a business, AI is going to be here, whether it's in one version or another. If it's overlords running the world, or hopefully not, but if it is, and you're watching this, we like you. If it's all sorts of cool little gimmicks and tools that still exist at the same similar type of scale, it's going to be part of the business plan. It has to be. And with that in mind, you need to be thinking of your hiring, your training, your development of your team, because if you have an agency which is built like a pyramid shape, where you've got a lot of respectfully low-skilled juniors that are focused on doing like the low-level drudgery of things, they're gonna get eaten up, because your business will not you will not want to get rid of those people, but those people will be gotten rid of in the agency by virtue of capitalism. You can't run a business if you're having to pay for work that a robot could do for $20 a month. Now, if you've got a team which you're building based on skills and behaviors that meet the values and the tone of voice of your business, then absolutely AI can help with the delivery at scale, the support for clients, and all of those sorts of things. So I think as part of your business plan, everyone in this digital room and watching wherever you are right now in the world, you need to be focused on the right hires at the right times. And in digital right now, hiring and sadly, the obvious, firing is massively rampant. Hiring is really, really hard. Finding and retaining people is really, really hard. Agencies and digital-based businesses are going to find it even harder if you don't have people as a big part of your plan. And I know you say your agency is like a family, Shane. Hopefully it's like a family that eat Christmas dinner together rather than, see each other once a year and, have a big old fight. Hannah, how are you featuring the people part of the business in the long term? Because obviously, like you say, you can't plan hugely, but it's going to be there, right?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest people change we've made is using AI in our hiring process. So we use AI to kind of ask AI what questions we should be asking people, but also using AI to determine actually like what key skills go in our job descriptions. We found we kept interviewing people who weren't the right fit, and we wondered if we were asking for the wrong thing. And we kind of used AI, regenerated our job descriptions, and actually ended up with a much better kind of plan for what we needed. Like, it helped us identify what was missing. And we talked that through with our candidates, because I think they should know that AI was used in their hiring process. And then that gets them being a bit more open-minded to understand that AI isn't used to replace them on delivery work. It's used to operationally speed us up. And it's enabled us to have a really lean structure where there's 2 members of our leadership team, not 5, because we're very quick at doing things and getting the agency running itself done. But being open and honest with your team about AI is just important, and then they'll feel trusted and feel part of the journey rather than fight against it.
I ignored everything that you said after speed of delivery because that was the segue I was waiting for to go to challenge number 3. So challenge number 3 for you guys, just because AI allows for faster delivery, how are you making sure clients get great results? And the reason I've got this question in is because Duda did a survey recently where they found that 56% of agencies that they surveyed are actually finding that time-consuming maintenance type stuff is actually one of their top barriers to scaling. Now, I think what this means to get under the skin of it is that you can use it as much AI as much as you like to speed up delivery and things like that, and so on. But a big part of managing clients from a web dev point of view is maintenance in terms of, you know, updating pages and changing new features and things like that. I know you don't have to update plugins and so on with Duda, but you know what I mean in that regard. But also the account management side of things. In order to have a decent service relationship in this industry, you need to be top of the tree with this sort of stuff. So yes, you can deliver stuff faster, but how are you, Shane, making sure you balance getting great results every single time?
Well, you know, I think the 50% of agencies surveyed by Duda is because you've got to weed out the stupid bloody comments, you know, or the stupid questions, you know, that's the time-consuming one, and that's why we've put a chatbot in, because it deals with the stupid questions.
Yeah,
and that allows us to focus on improving, enhancing, and you know, and it's a case of using it to get rid of the waffle. Right, it's the waffle that's an Australian term, right? Get rid of the crap.
Oh no, we use it in the UK. I don't know about the US. So anyone in the US, what the equivalent of
get
waffle
rid of the waffle, right? Because when you get a lot of customer support, you're going to get a lot of waffle, stupid questions that can be, because they won't read FAQs. They won't do it, right? They think the whole world is falling apart. That's why you use chatbot for those basic things, and all of a sudden you've gained an incredible percentage of that 56%.
Yeah.
And you can focus on quality and quantity.
Absolutely. And just going to throw in a question here, because I did the thing where I asked everyone what's going on. Oh, there we go. Everyone's back. So Jeremy eats waffles, but Fran, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm sorry if I'm not. How can you share a specific instance where AI made a significant difference in achieving a business outcome? I'm gonna throw that to Hannah for the first instance, because I know that you're using, for example, Kaizen and things like that. Have you got a specific instance where that's been the case?
Yeah, so fairly recently we had a manager feedback about how successful one of their accounts was, and how recently the client had kicked off a little bit, and over the past 2 months, everything was turning around. Mm-hmm. And it really felt like it on email from the day-to-day contact. But we dug into our Kaizen reports, and what we saw actually was the sentiment of the decision maker was dropping. Every call, week by week, was dropping down. And they went from about a 70% score down to about 48. So they didn't hate us, but someone declining, like nipping it in the bud early. So like we actually just gave that client a call directly and said, like, we know we solved the problem you were annoyed about, but kind of, do you forgive us? And asked them if things were better, what we could do more. And now we've just seen that fly back up in terms of happiness, because we've preempted a complaint. And by doing that, it's great retention, and it's an immediate kind of business outcome that we've stabilized that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the thing, like, you know, yes, it allows for faster delivery, but it also allows for faster awareness and insight. And I think that's a key aspect here. And it does pull into a question from, and I really am probably getting this wrong, so I'm saying Frayne, I'm sorry. Are there any specific domains or tasks where you prioritize human judgment over AI for quality assurance? Now, my assessment here is, you will use lots of tools like your chatbot, Shane, for example, to get rid of what we call the waffle that Jeremy eats. But there are going to be, and almost hopefully always, areas where you will want to prioritize human judgment. But in the let's look 3 years into the future, the 3-year vision. Where are you seeing the scale move at any point?
That's me.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, you didn't ask Chris. I was standing
I
there.
know. I'm dropping the ball. I'm dropping the ball with 11 minutes to go. I'm so sorry, everybody.
You've got to prompt me, saying,
tired.
Shane, what do you think about this?
I'm sorry, everyone.
Okay,
I'm so sorry.
What was the question again, Chris?
So are there any areas where you're prioritizing human judgment over AI for quality assurance
all
now?
of them, right? But again,
And will that stay the same though?
No. The difference is the human judgment has gone up because and if you imagine if you're supporting 10,000 Duda sites, okay? So you can imagine that our messenger, our support, our chatbot, it's getting flooded. What it allows us to do is sift through the waffle and get to helping where we know, well, they need a superhero to jump in there. And it streamlines the process of what's urgent, because to every client, everything's urgent, Hannah, correct? Right? We got to go from urgent is when you're dying and you're bleeding out. That's urgent. Okay. But if you've got something wrong with a JPEG or something, that's not urgent. It's just important.
Yeah.
So AI helps us get to dealing with the urgent, getting to the important, and the human then can make a really good decision on which ones to deal with first, because AI is taking care of a lot of them.
And Hannah, I know that you, like you said a minute ago about, picking up on a problem kind of before it became a problem. Are there any areas in the future beyond that instance where you can see these kinds of things coming into play? I'm wondering whether, for example, Google algorithm updates and all that sort of stuff. Is there something that if you were to put your SaaS hat on, you might find a new niche there?
Yeah, I think some form of analysis of what's currently ranking and what's improving, and then being able to apply the differences onto your site automatically in terms of content is what we'd really love, for it to be able to identify the gaps and almost do that competitor analysis. And then it's just a human review on top of that. Always the human review. I would say, in answer to that previous question about sectors and spaces and site types, like, we have seen some absolute horror stories from clients that have used AI themselves in the finance space and have published things that are just completely inaccurate. Yeah. So I think if you're working in anything like your money, your life, like anything that actually really matters and isn't like, no offense, but just selling a pair of shoes.
Hey,
you need, I know.
Bob's Shoe Shop's going to have a terrible comment for you in a minute on here.
I think it's just essential you get the human checks in on everything. And I would imagine that that's kind of how it's going to continue.
Yeah. Okay. I agree. I've got a really cool question here from Talents into Profits, which I'm sorry, Talents into Profits. I hope you were not called that at birth. How do you manage 10,000 clients and ensure growth and retention? Now, obviously, take that into your own sphere, because in a digital agency like Vakir, for example, 10,000 SEO clients is unthinkable, because 10,000 SEO clients in any agency is unthinkable. And Shane, from your perspective in Camel Co, how do you manage that many clients and ensure growth and retention? Do you think AI is going to be a bigger part of the picture in the long run?
AI is helping us get 20,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's
big words. We're going to talk about this next year.
I mean, I've got a love-hate relationship with it, right? And the only reason I've got a love-hate relationship, because you've got to take in the greed factor as well, Chris. There's some greedy buggers out there who love AI because they can fire people, right?
Yeah.
So they're the ones I don't like, and I try to. But in my case, we have this thing called Disney service. That's, when we do something outstanding, that's Disney service, right? And what it then moves us to what becomes camel service, which, you know, we're faster, we're meaner, we're leaner, we go out of our way. It's a Filipino cultural thing. You know, we just want to make people happy, even if it kills us, right? We want to make people
Hopefully it
happy.
doesn't.
Yeah, it's the way they are. That's why they're brilliant at being doctors and nurses, right? So in our case, how does it help us with retention? Because the AI has taken over the initial bit. It gives us the ability to show more love. And the more love we show, the more we increase our customer base, right? Because people that move over to us, one of the major reasons is we know what we're doing, especially with Duda. We have that development part. We've got the SEO, because we only deal with Duda. We don't deal with anyone else. So they come over to us for that, but they also come over for the love. The AI gives us the opportunity to give even more love. So I'm not joking. I want to get 20,000 customers. I don't want just 10.
Yeah,
AI will help us do that.
Absolutely. So, right, last 5 minutes. I really wish Josh could have made it back, but you know, you need electricity for even AIs to work, and he is a superhero. But you know, you can only fly so fast before your skin falls off. So, Hannah, top tip from an agency leader, someone who's running a business, got skin in the game, planning for significant growth in the next few years. Top tip for your business plan in the next 3 years, and how big a feature do you think AI is going to play in it?
Cool. I think my top tip would be keep the fundamentals the same, but the way you're executing it changing. So in terms of fundamentals, we talk about everything we do having warmth and competency. So competency, like we're quite good at the marketing that we do, and warmth, hopefully you'll find that we're lovely people and you can build a connection with us. Those will always be our fundamentals in what we deliver as an agency. Like I can't imagine that changing in the next 10 years, let alone the next 3. But what will change is how we execute. And as Shane just said, building in AI so that we can be better at warmth or better at competency. That's what's going to be essential, and being open to it. I think if you try and hide from it or keep your business plan exactly the same or say we're going to be different by not using it at all, you're just going to fall behind. Exactly.
And Shane, similar question, exact same question, in fact, to you. You know, you are in the deep of it with huge amounts of clients, lots of scale, lots of scope. Duda is the backbone of the tech in the business. You've got a business plan for growth in the future. Where does AI sit?
I'm same as Hannah, and that is, it's in our case, it's human first, and anything that AI can give us, we are open to it and we'll give it love, as long as it's allowing us to enhance and expand our team's abilities and talents, not replace them.
Yeah.
So we're looking at it every single time. Well, how can we use this thing, right, to make our team better, which makes our clients happier? You know, it gives that camel level of service. So AI will be in our dominant part of our 3-year plan, Hannah, same as you, but it's how can it enhance the human, not eradicate the human.
Exactly.
Fair point. Now, I said this at the beginning of the session, and I'm going to reiterate it now because I just want to chime up the next session, which is set up to be a decent one. Just as a reminder, everyone doing everything with AI at the minute, we're testing, we're trying. As Hannah said, you test, you iterate, you keep going. There's going to be things that aren't so good. There's going to be things that are mistakes. You might lose a client because you've done something that didn't work out, or you've tried something. And bear in mind that this quote was written over 100 years ago. So please don't talk to me about, you know, all sorts of things that people thought back then. But Theodore Roosevelt said that it's not the critic who counts, it's the man who points out it's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds has done them better, the credit belongs to the man actually in the arena. And if you swap man for person, if you wanted to do it your own modern way, everyone's trying their best and everyone's doing their best when it comes to these things. Things are some things fly, some things flop, and most things are being done with the intention of making life better for everybody. And for the most part, especially with some of the stuff I've seen coming up with Duda in the next few months, expect big waves in the space, which tees me up to the next session, which is how is Duda incorporating AI into their platform. Itai and Amir, Duda's co-founders, are both here, so I get to welcome them on in a second or two. They're going to discuss how Duda has been incorporating AI into many areas of the platform. Hey, look, there he is. There they are. Hey, look at them. Just on cue as well. It's almost like I had a man in the back room. You guys are going to be talking all about how you're building AI into your platform. So I'm going to let you get on with it. And thanks very much in advance.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey there. I think we are live, and this is our last session of the day. My name's Chris Lemma, and I am here with the two Duda co-founders, Itai, who's the CEO, and Amir, who's the CTO. I think Itai is in the US, and more often than not, Amir is in Israel, leading the product and engineering teams there. It bears no introduction to the rest of you that are here and have been attending, but Duda is a fast-growing platform that has more than 22,000 agencies building more than 1 million websites. And this growth is tied to these two gentlemen. So today, what we're going to hear from them, as you heard Chris just mention, is the plan for the platform and where it's going and where AI is getting introduced. We're going to hear from them. And if you have questions as they're speaking, you see the comment section, the chat that is inside of the UI that you're watching this stream. You can put those questions there. We'll have people looking through them while these guys are talking. Ask your questions in the chat. We'll pull from there. And that's where, when we finish with these two sharing their future plans and insights, I will lead us in a moderated Q&A session. So with that, I want to give it over to Itai, who's going to kick us off. Is that right, Itai?
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris, and looking forward to this session with you and Amir. Cool. Can we have our slides on? Just a second. Okay, sorry. So let's kick it off now. I think this is probably one of the greatest times to grow an agency. And let me explain why. First and foremost, we're at a peak in terms of small business formation. It's almost parallel to where we were in 2021, kind of peak COVID era. So we all know that the high volume of formation of small businesses is one of the key levers to agency growth. We're also seeing strong growth of agencies on our own platform. On average, an agency that joins Duda grows 436% in terms of the number of websites on our platform within 3 years. So the market opportunity is clearly here. So what's holding back from agencies from growing even faster? We asked exactly that question of 370 agencies worldwide who are not Duda customers. And these are the biggest pain points that they mentioned. Number one, website maintenance at 28%. The number two biggest pain point, website stability and ensuring ongoing performance, especially at scale. This initially surprised us quite a bit because you would expect agencies to say that maybe a big pain point is acquiring new clients or the rising cost of labor. But no, it's the brutal ongoing work of ensuring sites are up to date, maintained, and performing well. We at Duda believe that there's a solution to this, and it lies in better tools to enable agencies to scale efficiently as they address their clients' growing demands. About a year ago at DudaCon, we introduced Duda's new company vision statement. Just as a refresher, that vision is to empower web professionals to create the next generation of web experience. And this vision statement powers everything we do. It powers our product roadmap, and it focuses Duda as an organization on what we can do to help web professionals do better. At the core of this vision statement, we found a good way to visualize it is with what we call here the Duda Galaxy. There's two main themes. One is empowering web pros, and the second is next generation websites. And there's a couple of product categories under each one of these themes: productivity, performance, integration and expansion. On the next generation websites, it's ensuring that web agencies can build transacting websites for users with personalizing those experiences, using data when building these websites, and making sure that they're building websites with cutting-edge design tools. In today's session, Amir and I will focus on 4 of these product categories. Let's start with productivity and AI. AI represents the next major step forward in computing. It broke into our lives for many of us in November last year with the introduction of ChatGPT. And the Duda team has been working ferociously to ensure that we're integrating AI features into our product. And there's a couple of features that were released, and I'll talk about it soon. And there's ongoing effort to introduce more and more AI features going forward. We believe that the world of the web design is going to go through a tremendous amount of change, and AI is going to play a key role in defining what it means to be a web designer. Let's talk about 3 major opportunities for agencies to embed AI. First and foremost, to boost productivity, to dramatically speed up the time that it takes to build websites by introducing content generation and automating mundane tasks. Number 2, streamline acquisition. Use personalization of content to create a better experience and higher converting websites. And number 3, expand your services. Think of how you can embed AI to offer new products and new services that help increase and grow your revenue without increasing spend. As I mentioned, Duda has already embedded several AI features. So let's go through what's available today. AI Content Creation Assistant. So right now today in the platform, when using the widget, the text widget, you can create new content or recreate text, and all this while the AI knows the business that you're building the website for, the products and the services that business offers, and takes that into account with the suggestions of the new content. It's pretty cool, and I really recommend you try it out. AI generated SEO, another feature that we recently released, where the AI recommends titles and descriptions that will allow you to quickly add them to many pages with a few simple clicks. Our team is working on additional SEO features that will be added, powered by AI, in the next couple of months. A few other things that we're planning to introduce in the future is an AI-based content collection form. I'm sure a lot of folks here are familiar with our content collection form that you can use during onboarding, and we're going to enhance that with AI capabilities. So the AI will suggest additional questions that you can ask during the onboarding that are based on the industry and vertical of that specific SMB. And lastly, AI-generated site sections, which I'm really excited about. And that's creating whole sections with content and images pre-populated all through AI. It's going to be amazing. So we talked about the things that Duda has added in terms of AI, and that's only the beginning, because we really want to see what you, as our customer, can do on top of our platform using APIs and using AI. Some ideas are, and things that we've seen customers do, is create a DIY onboarding for your clients, where you can create custom experiences using AI and using content and information that you have about the business to create a very personalized onboarding experience. Also, the ability to create AI-generated landing pages at scale. Again, with a little bit of information about the small businesses that you're servicing, you can create thousands of web pages pre-populated with data, all with leveraging our API. AI is not going to replace you, but another agency that makes better use of AI might. And what I like about this statement is that it focuses us on what the real fear behind AI should be. It's the fear of not doing anything. It's the fear of not training ourselves, not educating ourselves, just standing by and kind of falling behind. AI presents an amazing opportunity for everybody here to become better, to focus on strategy, to focus on research, to focus on what matters to help SMBs grow. And that's the opportunity for all of us. So there's hundreds of tools, Duda is part of it, that are going to be powered by AI. I really urge everybody here to leverage those and make sure that you're servicing your customers in the best way and helping them grow. For the next part, I want to invite Amir Glad to share some of the other areas that we're investing in. Amir?
Yes, thanks, Itai. Hey, everyone. Great to be here. And just to mention one thing regarding AI, we have a full session around AI that goes much more deeply into the product. I think it's happening on day 3, if I'm not mistaken, day 3 of DudaCon. You can see session number 2, how to 10x your agency efficiency without compromising quality. You'll be able to see here really what we are working on. And anyone that is interested in this topic, I highly recommend to join this session on Thursday. Cool. So I'm going to present my part. And let's continue with the journey. So great. So we talked about like productivity with AI. Now let's talk a little bit about the next generation of websites and focus first on the design part. So we know that design in websites is obviously very critical and evolving topic. There are always like new trends that are coming out, and designers love to use them and asking us to allow them to build sites with those features in the platform. And I'm talking about animations. I'm talking about responsive design with more breakpoints. I'm talking about overlapping elements and so on. And one thing that we've been really deep at work is rebuilding the core editing of Duda. So those of you here who are already Duda customers, you probably know Duda Flex that we introduced, I think 2 years ago, as a way to build a new type of section within Duda websites that is using the latest technologies. And what we've been doing in the last year is really building what we call Duda Editor 2.0, which is going to be based on the Flex technology. And when I'm saying Duda Editor 2.0, I mean sites and templates that are based completely on the Flex technology. No hybrid mode like you see today, which is standard sections and Flex sections. So with Duda Editor 2.0, it's all Flex sections, including the header, including the footer, including all the pages. You have only Flex, and we also made like tremendous improvements to this product. Just to name a few things of advantages of this product, you can really build pixel perfect design. That's one. Second, and we're saying it after doing user testings with our beta users, you can build sites on Duda in 50% of your time, and you do it because you have to you need to spend much less time on things like adjusting spacing or alignment, or even making repeating content to look similar. In Flex, it's very easy to do. It is leveraging the latest CSS features, Flex, CSS grid. It means that the markup that we generate and the CSS that we generate is really just like a web developer building it by hand. It's fully responsive, meaning that you can change the window size and see it changing on the fly. Also, when using the editor, when you switch from desktop view to mobile view or tablet view, you can see an instant switch, also something that makes the work much smoother and quicker. And in terms of performance of the live websites, we get even better page load speeds and core vital results with the Duda Editor 2.0 websites. On our templates that we built, we get above 90 score on Lighthouse test, which is pretty amazing and difficult to do. Duda Editor 2.0, we are in the phase of launching it and releasing it to customers. There's already around 300 customers that already got access to it, and they are building sites with it as we speak right now. Over the coming months, I think until the end of the year, we're gonna hopefully release it to all the customers of Duda. We still have some missing features that we are working on to make it complete, but this is going to be our new editor, and we're going to push more features into it, and I'm sure that you're going to love it. Then in terms of I mentioned here even better page load speeds and core vitals. So just to remind you what do we mean by saying even better. So today, and this is a screenshot that we are taking from a tool that Google built to compare different website builders and CMS platforms. How do they do with core vitals? And you can see that here we are comparing Duda to the the biggest players in the industry: WordPress, Wix, Squarespace, and Webflow. And you can see that Duda is really on the top with 73% pass rate, which means that more than 73% of Duda websites are passing the core vital test, which is very impressive. You can see number 2 after us is 55%, so really big margin. And as I said, with Duda Editor 2.0, it's going to be even better, according to our tests. So I hope that in few months, you'll have much better design flexibility building sites on Duda without compromising on quality, productivity, and speed. Okay, so we talked about design in the next generation of websites, and let's talk about transactions, which is a big topic and something that we invest in a lot. And I'm talking about here Duda e-commerce. But let's talk a little bit about the opportunity first. So what we see in the internet is that 70% of websites are coming from areas like restaurants, personal services, professional services, and so on, while retail sites are only around 10% of the websites, and 20% are other B2B sites and other verticals. And when we look at sites being built on Duda, this is also true. The majority of sites being built on Duda also belong to those 70% of websites. We have a nice amount of retail sites, but most of them are professional services, personal services, and so on. And the question is, do SMBs need to transact online even if they are not retailers? And what we are saying and seeing in Duda is that the answer is yes, that most sites can transact and should. And SMBs, they really need digital as a channel, way beyond retails, and there are so many possibilities. Here, what you can see here is a screenshot from Duda e-commerce. When you add a new product, we just give you some examples. You can create a physical product, which is a standard one, but you can add a digital product, or you can add a service and charge for it, or you can ask for a donation, or you can sell gift cards or vouchers. And there are so many different scenarios. If this is online booking, the charging, if this is like selling tickets, if this is selling gift cards. And we really see like live examples of websites being built on Duda e-commerce that are not necessarily just retails that are using online transactions capabilities. To show you just few examples, screenshot from a Duda website selling ice rink rental service. So you go to the website and you purchase your appointment for ice rink rental. Another example of a Duda website on Duda e-commerce is Kind Flow retreat registration, selling tickets for a retreat festival. So definitely not like the default retailers that we see. And while we're at it, I want to say a few words about Duda e-commerce. So Duda e-commerce, it's a product that we launched last year. We continue to invest in it. It's growing quickly. We have now thousands of live stores on Duda e-commerce. Many of them are retails. Many of them are other use cases like I showed here. In the last few months, we added a lot of capabilities to Duda e-commerce. We added tax automation. We added products and product options and variations. We had different product types. We added digital products. We added a way to kind of manage your customers and for your customers to log in, to see their transactions. And we have a very exciting roadmap to continue on Duda e-commerce, adding subscriptions, adding shipping automations, and so on. Also here we have a dedicated session to talk about e-commerce and online transactions. It's happening tomorrow at session 1. Also very interesting session. So I recommend everyone that wants to know how to do it to get to this session. And I think if you're an agency and you are not offering today any e-commerce capabilities, you should rethink it and see if it makes sense to your customers. Those products are typically more expensive, creating stickier revenue stream and higher revenue, and you should take advantage of that. All right. So we talked about the next generation of websites and what we are doing to invest there. Let's go back to empowering web pros and talk specifically about integration and expansion and what you can do with the Duda platform to integrate and expand. And this is, I think, a topic that is important for every agency that wants to grow. It wants to grow either to become more efficient or to create additional revenue streams on top of what you're doing today. So 3 ways that you can really expand on the Duda platform. The first one is to add apps from our app store. The second one is to build or to buy and integrate your own solution on top of Duda. And the third one is to use our APIs to connect between Duda and your own workflows or system. Let's talk about it in a bit more detail. So the App Store. First, the App Store is growing very quickly at Duda. We see number of apps being installed and used growing very, very nicely across the year. And we see also that sites that are installing apps, they have 50% lower churn rate, which means that those sites are stickier and provide more value. It's good for us, for Duda, but I think it's also great for you as agency owners, as you provide stickier sites to your clients. In terms of the App Store itself, we have now 50 plus apps and counting. We release new apps every month. Just to name a few, we have great apps for compliance and accessibility. We have great apps for GDPR and consent management. We released recently Book Like a Boss, which is a terrific online booking solution. We have Paperform for advanced form with logic and payment, and more. We are also working on an exciting project. We call it Connectors. We're going to release apps that will be able to connect between Duda and popular services like MailChimp, like HubSpot, like Salesforce, and we hope to release that this year so you can start using it. So that's the App Store. Second is how do you build your own widgets and apps for your clients only. So Duda, we have a tool called the Widget Builder, where you can really like build your own solution. And those solutions that you build can be available for all your sites in the platform. Now, one thing that I'm also like excited to share is that I think until the end of this month, we're gonna release a way to transfer widgets that were built in the Widget Builder from one account to another. It will allow you to buy widgets much more easily from Duda partners that are building widgets and want to sell them. Today, this process is like pretty difficult, and very soon it's going to be automated. So if you have like dev capabilities, you'll be able to start building widgets on Duda and sell them. And if you are an agency without dev capabilities, you'll be able to buy widgets from others. And what type of widgets you can build? You can build a lot of stuff. You can enhance design flexibility. Let's say that you want, I don't know, like a slider with a very specific requirement that Duda doesn't provide. You can build that in the Widget Builder. Or you can integrate third parties or even connect to data that you have on your own system. And then the last one is the Duda APIs. So the Duda APIs, I think those areas are like some of the biggest value that we can provide to our customers. Like we have a very extensive API that you can power any workflow you can imagine. So you can integrate Duda into your production workflows, meaning that when an order is coming in from a customer, you can create the site automatically, push the data that you collected from the client into the content library, and create a link to your design to start working on it, for example. You can spin up like new websites in milliseconds. And this is very useful if you want to run ad campaigns and create landing pages at scale based on some parameters, as an example. And we also have Duda customers that really even built an AI landing page builder on top of this API, which works really nicely. And you can log clients directly into your system using our single sign-on API capabilities. And just one example of one of our large customers called Strive, which is a very successful SaaS platform, providing lots of solutions for SMBs to manage their business, to manage their online presence, and so on. And they use Duda and Duda extension capabilities and API in a very large way. First, they allow client access via single sign-on. So their customers are logging into the Thrive dashboard, and from there to edit the website, they click on a button and they go into their white label Duda editor without logging in to Duda or to any other system. Second, they really automate the team workflow from their CRM and project management tools, like I mentioned before. So they get an order into their CRM. From there, they automatically create all the assets, create the site, push content, push data, and create a link to the team, to start working on it. And third is that, whenever they create a site, they get business information from multiple systems that they have, and they're syncing it all into the Duda content library via API. So when they work on the website, they save lots of time to gather this content, and also this content stays fresh if it changes afterwards. So this is just one customer of Duda using those expansion integration capabilities. We have many of them, and I think those customers are really seeing huge value from those capabilities. So I think this is it for this part. The web really evolves, and Duda innovates with it. So I think you can all trust Duda to be your trusted partner when it comes to website building, also for the future. And I think, Chris, I'm gonna let's get back to you and open the Q&A session.
Thank you. That was fantastic. I just wanted to clarify one thing. We had just started the session and someone asked if I always match my hat and shirt to the colors of the slide presentations. And I just want to let people know that's only if folks like these founders pay extra. That costs extra cash. So that's not for everybody. Guys, that was fantastic. That was excellent. And of course, we had just heard the previous session talking about agencies and touching on AI. And here we go right into the platform and AI. So I want to start, Itai, with a question. that's pretty open, wide, and generic, which is simply, what are you hearing and how are you responding to the agencies that are worried about introducing AI into their platforms and workflows and everything else, worried that it's gonna rip them out of a job?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good question, and one that I feel pretty passionate about. And my answer is very clear here, that AI is not going to replace you. I think tools and tooling is becoming simpler, and that's a historic fact. It hasn't started with AI, right? Chris, you've been around here, building tools and products for many, many years. And, it's much easier today to build a website than it was 10 years ago, and easier than it was 20 years ago, because of, tools like Duda and now AI and, a lot of other tools, AWS, and, we can go on and on and on. So I think technology evolves, and the agency has to find its place in the world. And I think it's not about putting a website on the internet. That's not the agency's work. The agency's work is around building a digital marketing strategy for a small business that will help it grow. And I think AI is far, far away from being able to do that, right? In order to build a strategy for a small business, you need to understand that business's pain points, the opportunities. You need to be a marketer wearing a marketing hat. You need to understand where leads are coming from, and it could be from social media, Google. You need to think about where that traffic is going to convert and where to put CTAs, and how do you nurture it afterwards. So there's all that, putting all that together around a strategy that makes sense and will eventually show ROI for that small business. This is the agency's work. And let AI take care of automation and removing the mundane tasks and making this process easier, simpler for the agency, so the agency can service a lot of customers and basically save cost at doing so.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And you're absolutely right. Tools have always made it easier, so we shouldn't be surprised by that, right? But tools don't replace us. So, Amir, I got to jump to a very specific question that was low-level practical, but it was just a natural outpouring of what you were talking about. You did so much to talk about this new Editor 2.0 that Christian asked, is it better to wait for the Editor 2.0 to build a new website, or will it be added to all the websites? So help us think through the practicality of, do we wait? Do we start building?
Yeah, good question. I think I wouldn't wait. I think it could take a few months before the Duda Editor 2.0 is going to be released for all users. One thing that I would say that if you like Flex today, it's better to use Flex sections in the site that you are building. And if you're using Flex sections with the existing editor, you'll be able to take those Flex sections, save them as sections, and then add them to Editor 2.0 version. So I don't know if we're gonna, at least in the beginning, there's not gonna be automatic migration, but for all those Flex sections, you'll be able to easily port them from one website to another. And that's the path that I would go with. So use the current editor, use Flex. When 2.0 is available, move those Flex sections to the new website.
Yeah, Amir, I want to go back to another thing you talked about, which got a lot of positive attention in the comments, is when you started talking about agencies that have developer capabilities to start building widgets and parts and being able to make them available. As we dig into that space a little bit, are there particular areas or spots where you think there's a wide open space for agencies to jump in and really get involved with this?
You mean space to sell widgets to do the users?
Yeah. Are there particular kinds of widgets that are more interesting or more practical? Are there things that you want developer partners to jump in and enhance Duda in their own way?
Look, I think in Duda, first of all, we as a platform, we cannot cover all solutions. And that's especially true when you go to specific verticals. So I think the chances that we will prioritize in our roadmap specific solutions for plumbers or dentists or lawyers or whatever vertical is very, very low. So anything that is kind of verticalized and there's a large enough market for, I think is very good idea to create widgets for those market integration with popular services for those verticals, and then sell them for other Duda folks that are building that. That's one. Second, I think Duda e-commerce, which is relatively new product. There's a lot of opportunity to build e-commerce related widgets and apps that we would love to see from our ecosystem being built. And third is really on the design flexibility, which we know it's endless. We invest quite a lot in that in Duda, in trying to make widgets as flexible as possible, but we can never get into the taste of everyone or the request of everyone's. So also I think kind of more niche design flexibility widgets, I think are also very welcome always.
Yeah, that's great. I'm going to go back to you, Amir, before I jump back to Itai. And Crossrest Nexus was asking questions specifically around client permissions and levels between full access, limited access. And I wonder, is the underlying ability to create and to bring in dev partners into it, is that a place where either the API or what's available with widgets will allow developers to start adding potentially their own levels of specific access, right? Giving customers the ability to make some changes, but maybe not full change?
So in terms of the permission, we added quite a lot of permissions. And I think whenever we're releasing new features, we also think how kind of granular the permission should be. An example is now the AI that we released. So all the content assistant that Itai mentioned is available for staff members and for owners. But for clients, you have a specific permission if you want your clients to be able to use AI or not. So whenever we release new features, we are thinking about permission as well. In terms of concrete plan to do something between limited content and and full editing, we don't have anything specific for that. But we are thinking about it, but nothing specific that I can mention. Awesome.
Itai, you started your presentation talking about the vision statement that you shared last year, and then enhanced with that diagram and walked us through a series of both what's here today in terms of AI, the tools for SEO, and being able to enhance the text in the blocks that you have, but also what's coming soon. Are there agencies that have already started putting this to use in interesting ways that you could talk about?
I think it's it's still early days. We just kind of released those features relatively recently. I think I've seen interesting things. Definitely, I know there's a lot of agencies that are making use of the AI content generation for sure. And even we see here in the comments that folks are saying that it's been pretty valuable to them. Some of the interesting things that I have seen are, I would say, today probably more around kind of automation. There's definitely companies that are using Duda APIs to create some DIY flows. Can't mention which ones exactly, but definitely a company in kind of the marketing branding space that asks multiple questions of the customers, gets some information, and then once it brings that customer into the Duda editor in a DIY experience, you can see already a page is up there and loaded, the business information that they gathered. They made smart use of the questions that they asked the customer. For example, what vertical are you, what industry is the site for? So then you can kind of preload templates that are related to that business. Or if you ask that business questions around, address and, you know, their email and phone number, you know, populate all these things in advance into widgets on the site so that that business has a great head start. So these, I've seen quite a few examples of that. I've also seen other companies make use of our APIs to build, you know, leveraging data that they already have. So some of our customers have a lot of data in their CRM about their customers, and leveraging that data. So it could be images, it could be, again, business information. Through our APIs, they can create thousands of landing pages or websites for their businesses completely automatically without that business needing to do anything. And then the business, you know, usually it's a good starting point, and the business can go in and claim that site and continue to develop it if it wants to. But I've seen like great examples around that in the real estate industry, in the travel experience industry. I've seen like really great sites that you wouldn't believe that they were automatically created without human intervention.
Itai, can I add some stats from the usage of our AI feature so far? So this is like fresh from the oven. So I think like we see that, like, you know, for the AI content assistant, we see more than 100,000, like, you know, 100,000 requests to generate content with AI so far. But what's really impressive that we see around 75% of like those requests, the Duda customer that is doing it is actually approving the suggestion from the AI. So this means that like this is like really valuable. By the way, also like interesting to see that the number one, right, we have in the content assistant different type of text generation. You can write a new paragraph, you can improve text, you can translate. So the number one in terms of popularity is really like the improved text. Yeah. And I personally also, this is like one of the things that I love the most about AI, you know. Me as a non-native English speaker, I can write like, you know, whatever I want with my half English and just do improved text, and I sound like, you know, so professional. And I think this is a great capability that everyone can use.
We did a Duda meetup here in Houston just a couple months ago. I don't know, middle of summer maybe. And a bunch of Duda agencies came out, and we were having a conversation about AI. And I pulled one agency aside and asked them, have you used the any of the AI features in Duda? And they said, yeah, the enhance or improve my writing. And they're like, I now click on it for everything. Like, it doesn't matter what I write. I like, here, just make this a little tighter, make this pop a little more, make it whatever. And you're like, yeah, it's a fantastic use of AI.
Fantastic. I agree. And like we added like the option to set the tone of the website. Yeah. So this improvement will take this tone of the website as a parameter. So it doesn't have to be like, so like, you know, high English. It could be, if you choose a tone of more kind of like conversational, it will use that. So that's great. Yeah. And for the SEO part, that we just like really released it like 2 weeks ago. So right, 2 weeks ago, we released the option on a page by page basis to generate the meta title, meta description. Just like, you know, I think 2-3 weeks ago already, we see that 25% of new SEO fields are being used with this AI, and also with very high conversion rate. I think for things like that, things that like, you know, right, how does it work? We take the content of the page, we take the other context of the business, what type of site is it, and we send it to the to AI to basically summarize it, but in an SEO optimized way, right? For description, for title. I think like for that type of tasks, the AI can do a better job than humans. And very soon, Itai, as you mentioned, we're going to release the bulk generation of SEO with AI. So you'll be able to go and with one click generate, like, you know, all the titles, all descriptions for all the pages of your website. Of course, you can review it, make changes, and so on. This is going to be amazing, saving like, you know, hours of time. I think from everyone building a site that is more than like, you know, 3 pages.
We have 3 or 4 folks that are saying, hey, we get that you're talking about AI and we get there's a movement toward AI, but can we put a pause on that for a second and ask the question about security and specifically 2-factor authentication? Amir, can you give us an update on where that sits?
Yeah, I have to admit that it's kind of like a long overdue for us. Like we need to edit, and we're planning to edit like very soon. It's like really like in the top of the roadmap to add the MFA capabilities to the Duda platform. We hear it loud and clear, also on the idea board. So the only thing that I can say is that stay with us a little bit more, and it's going to be available. It's going to be available like in the coming few months in the Duda editor.
Yeah. Yeah, let me add into that. I think MFA is definitely important. It's part of overall like I would say security features that Duda invest in, and Duda we recently got I think it's ISO 27001 certified. So we're definitely focusing a lot on security and different considerations related to security and business process continuation. So it's a big topic, and Duda is very committed to continuing and investing in security.
Yeah, one of the folks on there, we're now filling up with the comments, so I haven't gone back to see who wrote it, but they were like, "Hey, don't you know? Like in security, humans are the main issue," and you're like, "Yeah, we know." Right. So you just have to go back in and say, okay, what do we have to do to protect ourselves from ourselves? Right. Amir, I know that a lot of the presentation was on these big initiatives and big, moving significant progress forward on AI. But would we be incorrect in assuming that that's all we're working on here?
Yeah, that's incorrect, and and I think that what we realized that Duda, it's always true, but I think in the last year we realized it even more, is that we need to invest more in the small things, in the small features that many of our customers care about, just as much as we invest in the big projects like Duda e-commerce or AI and so on. And what we did is we started a new tradition in Duda, which we call the small improvement sprints. I don't know if you kind of guys who are listening, who are Duda customers, I hope that you managed to see that in the last year, especially if you follow the product updates feed, you saw a lot of small improvements from Duda on little things that people care about. And that was not that didn't happen by a chance. It happened because we decided every quarter or so, or maybe every 6 months, we're going to do a sprint. We're going to stop working on big projects, and we take the entire R&D organization and focus on small things. And we prioritize there things that have high votes on the Duda idea board and other consideration. But we're doing it, and the next one we're going to do it. I think in November. It's going to be the next small improvement sprint. So afterwards, we're going to have, I think, hopefully a lot of small features that we're going to release as well. And we're really baking it into our culture of small is very important, not just the new and the big ones.
That's excellent. And how often are you running those sprints for the little stuff? Is it once or twice a year? Is it more than that?
So it's going to be, I think, between 2 to 4 times a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Chad Ever asked a question that, again, I'm going to start back with you, which is will the 2.0 builder, Amir, put to rest outdated widgets in the current builder? For example, multi-location and the inability to connect to an external collection.
So actually, the 2.0 builder, in terms of widgets, all the widgets are compatible and are the same. So the new editor is based more on kind of the layout and the how pages are being structured and all the backend of Duda, how this is being stored. Now it's all in a model and so on. The responsive design aspect of it, the new CSS, but widgets by themselves, the same widgets that you have on editor 1.0 are going to be available on 2.0. So it's not directly related.
Got it.
Yeah. Also remember that it's very important, lots of our customers, they have custom widgets that they built on the widget builder.
Yeah.
It's very important for us to make sure that all those widgets work well on 2.0. So we decided to make the widgets kind of like agnostic to the editors.
Yeah, Ben was asking, wait, editor 2.0, where did I miss the announcement? Can we put on the screen the URL for we talked about where you can sign up to get beta access. I know there's a URL for it. And so if we can get that back on the screen, then anyone who wants to sign up and get early access to try that out can get to it. Itai, let's come back to you. When we're talking about investing in AI and investing in workflows and processes, right? Are there particular areas we talked about in your survey? There was maintenance. Maintenance was one of those things that people were struggling with. But are there other areas where agencies could make use of AI in their workflows to speed up their efficiency?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've seen, I've talked to some of our customers. We have customers that, on the support, I think the support side is an obvious answer many times.
Yeah,
I know we're thinking about it as well, right? There's, we all, that's an area where there's a lot of information. And for example, if I look in the Duda database in our Zendesk, there's a lot of questions and answers that were asked. And I even posted to our own VP of support, how can we improve there? How can we automate some of our responses based on the data that we have?
Yeah.
I think the tools are, for example, I know Zendesk is investing, but it's not completely there yet, where AI can respond and respond a full answer that would be meaningful enough and useful enough for users. But where I think it is now is that it can help your agents provide better answers. So it can suggest, like, at least give a head start for these agents with providing a suggestion of how to answer a client. And then and there's multiple tools that do that. And then the agent themselves can use that when responding to the end customer. So it still needs a human intervention or eyesight to just review the answer, but it does mean that humans can potentially become more efficient, more productive in answering. Potentially you need less people, or you're able to give better SLAs in terms of your response to clients, leveraging AI in support, for example.
Yeah, and I think that's huge, right? We've seen agencies start playing in that space of going, especially for products and platforms, right? We know that people are going to ask questions. Let's go mine all the tickets and all the questions we've already answered and make that kind of support easier. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And the same thing with documentation, right? Like how much more can we flush out documentation by making it easier, right, for people to figure out what they're going to do next or how they do it. That's excellent. Folks, we are getting close to the end of this. So if you have more questions that haven't been answered, head back over to the comments and make sure that you get the questions in there. And that way we don't miss you as we get towards the end of this. What was, Itai, when you were looking at that 300 plus survey of agencies, digital agencies that are these weren't Duda clients, but were in the digital space. Beyond the fact that maintenance was at the top and performance, were there other things that were surprising, interesting, or telling that kind of shapes how you're thinking about the future for where Duda goes?
Mm-hmm. I can tell you that, something, at least relevant to us, we know when we think about Duda and kind of our own brand awareness, we were surprised to see that even though there's some, pretty big competitors in our space, in the website building space, we saw that there's a lot of agencies out there that even if when asked today, they might not be using today, but they are considering to use Duda. So I think that's something that we saw very, very favorable, that we feel that there is at least a movement to, for agencies to consider more modern, more agency-focused type of website builders compared to some of the traditional website builders of the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's amazing how few folks, right? How we're watching a need for massive amounts of landing pages and massive amount of content on those landing pages, and people are still using older tools and older technologies and older approaches to pursue it, instead of going, okay, how should I be able to do this today? And so what Duda's doing to chase that down is impressive and makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it gives us a good feeling that we've been Amir and I started Duda 13 years ago, and we feel that we've built a platform for agencies, and we've spent a lot of time over these years talking to many agencies out there. It has influenced the product direction, right? And clearly we've added, everything that we build, we think of, you, the agency, like how can we make you better? How can we make you more efficient, more productive? And it's great to see that folks out there are appreciating it and using the platform.
The other thing that was surprising, Amir, at least surprising to me, and it happens all the time, right? You're talking to agencies, you're talking to people, and you're thinking, surely by now you've embraced some form of e-commerce, right? And yet the number of agencies who go, we're not touching that, right? We're not going near it. And so as you started looking at the data that was coming in, as you started seeing retail only represents one part of e-commerce, and that matches what I'm seeing, right? The guys at Amazon are building an Amazon Pay payment gateway just for service industry, right? For your plumber and everything else, right? And so you go, yeah, there's a whole lot beyond catalog and commerce, right?
Yeah.
And so how surprising was that to you, Amir? And how are you driving and helping agencies feel that confidence that they can get there?
Yeah, you're right. It's interesting. We have like an annual survey that we're sending. I think folks here, like on the line, probably like many of you are answering those surveys that we ask every year. And one of the sections there is really around e-commerce. And we saw actually, like we have like the question, do you build e-commerce websites on Duda or elsewhere? And we saw a decline this year, pretty significant, of like more than 5%. So like in the last year, Duda customers who are answering the survey, only, I think it was like 60%, only 60% are building e-commerce websites. I think in 2022, it was like more than 65%. And obviously, like we see some slowness in retail e-com new sites after, like, in COVID, there was like a big peak, like, for e-commerce, right? Yeah. It grew exponentially. We saw it like, in our own e-commerce solution, we saw it like, obviously, like, Shopify and the others, and it cooled down. And I think that's fine. But when we think about it and when we saw the use cases out there, we feel that, like, people need to kind of like rethink e-commerce for SMBs. And as I said before, it's so much more than retail. Like, if you want to be modern today, if you have an SMB website, you need to allow people to pay you online or to do all those things. People prefer that experience, right? So I think there's a big opportunity. And I think it's a big opportunity for agencies to drive, like, higher revenue from the same clients that they're already like serving.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right on. Amir, we have just a couple minutes left, so I don't know if you can pull this off in the amount of time we have left. But one of the folks here, Hans Knapp, asked, Amir, what makes Duda's R&D unique and able to deliver on these capabilities?
That's a great question, a question that I like. So, you know, like kind of like running an R&D organization is all about trying to be kind of like more productive and more kind of like systematic with what you do. And we are trying in Duda to invest a lot in like, the R&D automation. So we like, I don't know if like folks know, but like, there are like more than 4 times a day that a new version of the entire like, Duda platform is being deployed to production. And it happens automatically, after, like, so a developer is like, pushing a code, someone is reviewing it. Then we have like lots of tests that are running, visual tests, regression tests, UI tests, and so on. If everything is passing, then it goes into like the release candidate, it goes into production. The deploy itself is automated. If something goes wrong, like, we automatically roll back to the previous version. So there's like a whole team in Duda that is investing so much in that, because we understand that like without that, we cannot move fast. That's the key to be able to move fast. And one thing that just recently was, we checked and we were like really proud. We are using a tool called LinearB. It's a tool that like kind of like sits on top of our Git, and giving us a lot of statistics about like, the way that we work. How long does it take from the time that like a developer write the code until this code actually like, reaches customers in production? Or how long does it take to review? How many reviews do we do? How many times we deploy a day? All of those statistics that engineering teams like care about. But there's like clear correlation then between those stats and how successful the company is. And we're like, really excited to see that we are like, in what they call the elite, in the top 10% of companies. This is across like, more than 2,000 dev teams in terms of like, our KPIs on all the stuff that I mentioned. So, the Duda platform is really big. There's so many features, and we need to invest in so many different areas. It's like important to have like those automation running across the chain. And I agree that like sometimes we do have like regressions, even though we invest in all of that. So if it happened to you, I'm sorry about that. But just know that like we are investing like a lot in trying to minimize that as much as possible. And if something happens, to be able to react to that as fast as possible and to deploy like, a solution with a fix to production.
All right, let me get us to a close here. Itai, do you have any last words to wrap up on?
It's exciting times. As I mentioned in the session, we're early days in AI. So nobody should feel like they're left behind, or there's, everybody's still trying to figure out how they're going to leverage AI and how AI is going to be embedded into their business. It's not too late. It's actually, as I mentioned, very early. Take the time, do the research, train yourself, play with different tools. Almost every SMB tool out there is going to be adding AI features, not just Duda. So, make sure you stay on the ball in regards to AI.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys very much. And thank you to everyone who was watching. Make sure you come back for day 2 tomorrow. Tons of great sessions over the next 2 days.
Thank you, Chris.
Bye. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Itai. Bye, everyone.